Greetings. Hello. Welcome.
Hello,
to the
everyone.
Sunday Show After Dark. It's the show that isn't the Sunday show, but is exactly like the Sunday show, only later and better. I'm your host, Forrest Valkai, and I'm joined today by the handsome, illustrious, and brilliantly minded Darante Lamar. How are you doing, my friend?
I am doing wonderful. Now, I will let everybody know I fell asleep on my with my glasses on the other day, so I broke them, and so I had to pull the Timberlands out. And so, because in the spirit of that, I put on the chain and the Adidas fit today, just to go for the full Run DMC look. You know, got to go for it.
I wasn't gonna question it. I wear jeans and t-shirts and look like a fucking nerd all the time. So I was like, okay, cool. He's wearing things that people know who know how to wear things wear. That's great. Yeah, that's awesome.
Oh man, that's awesome.
Man.
Oh,
I was just telling Darante before the show started, and I want to tell everybody here, I just got back from the National STEM Festival in DC. I talked about it a few weeks ago about how they lost some sponsors because of the current political climate surrounding science. But the fundraiser raised some serious funds. They were able to pull off the event. And holy crap, like walking through there and meeting those kids, these like 7th graders and 10th graders who are doing research beyond what I would ever do in like a graduate program, like just unbelievably cool stuff. There was a kid there who was studying like new biomarkers in the brain to help identify and stop seizures in infants. There was a kid there who was developing better wind turbines that were like more efficient and less dangerous. There was a kid there who developed a freaking computer program that used AI and like detailed imaging to spot cataracts and prevent blindness and was like 10 times better than like actual medical imaging. There was a kid there who developed edible bandages. She made these bandages that were made out of all natural ingredients and used all natural adhesives. They weren't good tasting, but they were so natural, they were edible, and they worked better than like normal, industrial adhesive. And in the same exact way, there was a kid there who was using sound waves to alter disrupt the communication patterns of fruit flies to try to save crops and like make agriculture better. There was a kid there who developed a spit test for iodine deficiency so that people around the world could test for iodine deficiency by spitting in a tube and have access to better medical care. Like, I can't even begin to tell you just how insane so many of these projects were. You can go to my TikTok and my Instagram. I posted 2 videos of just like asking the kids, like, give me like 15 to 20 seconds of like just what you got, because I tried to record actual like elevator pitches for them and I ran out of room, time, space. I had too many questions. It was awesome. So you can see like a small handful of those there. And please freaking continue to support that event and that organization. Yeah. Explorer. Jenny and Carrie have been running this, I guess, for a while now, and they're still doing more and more. And I'm almost certainly going back next year. So if you want to come, I had a ton of people come out and meet me. Like I was stopped several times by fans of the show, fans of YouTube, whatever, and they were like, "Thank you so much for telling me about this. I have never been as inspired for the future as I am right now seeing these projects." Yes. So like, dude, if anybody wants to come out next year to DC and see these kids in action, I encourage you to do so. Check out like the resources that these people have been putting out and like the media that these people have been putting out, and like learn a little bit about what these kids have been doing, because it is absolutely freaking phenomenal. And that is everything that I got to say at the very beginning here.
Well, you know, Forrest, like what like one of the driving factors behind the work that I do is the idea of like, what if we could just increase the interest into STEM activities just by 5 or 10% of the population? Yep. If just 5 or 10% more of the population was interested in STEM, how different could the world be? And then you think like, what if it's not 5 or 10? What if it's 15 or 25? 15 to 25%, like, oh, so like just hearing you talk about that, man, like I'm nerding out because that's amazing to me. That's hopeful. Like it gives me hope. And I don't even like that word, but it gives me hope.
I hear you. No, it is monumental. And like we had these awesome, like we with the kids got to do 2 days of expo, where one day was like a VIP just for like investors and stuff, and then the other day was like a public expo for everybody to come through. They had mentorship sessions where they sat down with like all the STEM ambassadors, myself included, and like had like, you know, hour and a half long sessions of like asking whatever they wanted and like learning how to get better presentation skills, learning how to patent their stuff, learning how to get their stuff out there. Meeting with industry professionals. My session was about like going outside of the lab and like how to get your stuff public and everything. And so I was the science communicator in the room. We also had somebody from the DoD who was talking about like government research and like how to get funded there. We had somebody who was a pediatric hematologist for like all of her life and then moved on to work for Pfizer developing better medicines and things. And so like you have like real damn scientists all throughout here. We had astronauts that were there for these kids. We had people who developed like apps and video games and battle bots. We had people that were like, we had several medical doctors coming out, hanging out. We had one lady was working on like a company to like do bug agriculture, to like farm flies and things to make better food, more sustainable food that everybody can eat bugs. We had one lady who was running a company trying to develop the first commercial space station. We had just all of these amazing leaders in science, in industry, in medicine, and astronauts, like all sorts of people coming out here and hanging out with these kids and like giving them inspiration and teaching them how to be great scientists someday. So it's a great resource, not just for those kids. It's a great resource for anybody who's involved. So it's like, I agree with you entirely. If we can get 10% increase in public STEM interest, I think we would revolutionize this country. And I think it would be exponential from there. If we could do 15, if we could do 20, if we could do 30, if we get 50% of people excited about science, like we'll be all right. We'll be all right forever. Because right now, the best scientific advancements at this moment are either we're at war or we're all going to die. And like, if we could just if we could have research for curiosity's sake more, like, holy shit, the strides we could be making, it's unheard of. But that's a soapbox for another time.
I love it.
With that, I've been rambling for a minute, but do you have anything before we jump in? I didn't want to just take over the first part of the show.
Oh no, man! You had me excited. Like, I mean, you started to when you started talking about it before the show, I was already interested. My two oldest, they're going to be going. They'll be seniors this year, and so they'll be going to college next year. And they're both interested into the STEM subjects, and they're trying to figure out which route they want to go. They've been in hackathons, and like they're super excited about that. So just hearing that there still is space for that, it's hopeful for me. And it makes me feel good about the future for my kids, man.
Yeah, definitely. We've already got lines almost full. So I suppose they did fill up for a second, then a couple of people dropped out. But like, I think we should just go ahead and jump right in. I've got at least 2 people who promised me that they would call in and tell me about Jesus. We'll see if that happens.
Let's go.
Let's talk first. Do you have a preference?
I do not. Let's go for it.
Let's talk to Mark, calling in from Salty Crabs, who is a theist who says that near-death experiences are a way of finding out about the afterlife without scripture. Mark, you were on the line with Darante and Forrest. How are you doing today?
Right. Yes, fine, gentlemen. And you?
Never had a bad day.
Good?
Yeah.
Can you hear me okay? I'm not blasting or anything?
Am I what?
Are you hearing me all right? I'm not blasting the speaker out?
Nope, you're okay. You're just fine.
Okay. Yeah. Well, here we go on near-death experiences. I got interested in it a couple of years ago. I heard a guy named Dr. Sam Parnia talking about the research on it. And I got interested because he said that during the near-death experience, they typically have a life review in which they evaluate their lives from a moral, ethical position. So I thought this sounds promising, and started to figure out what I could learn.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What I could learn without relying on the Bible or Scripture, what I could actually prove about the afterlife and such. So, do you have any? Well, let me ask you, what are your preconceptions about near-death experiences?
Do you want to start, or should I?
I can start a little bit.
I'm asking you two.
Well, yeah, I'm asking my co-host.
I don't know what to start.
Yeah, I'll say, well, the first thing is when I think of near-death experiences, they are deeply personal and therefore deeply subjective. And so now the idea of a person's near-death experience being a review of their life, that doesn't necessarily ring weird to me, right? Because it's near death, not actual death. So you're still alive, which means you are aware that you're dying. And so that seems to be an appropriate response to start thinking about your life if you feel like you're dying. And so I guess my question would be, how would that tie into Scripture? Like, I don't need to almost die to review my life. Like when I think of that, that's a reaction. Like, a doctor hits your knee, it's a reflex. I think one of the beauties of evolution and consciousness is I no longer need that to inspire that reflex. Instead of needing a near-death experience to reflect over my life, I can just wake up and choose that, hey, bro, I don't like the way life is going. Let's reflect over your life. And then still have that same capacity to do that.
Well, the fallacy that I hear most, to start off with, is that it's caused just by a cascade of chemicals in the brain from lack of oxygen and such.
Yes.
And the proof that that's not true is that the body really, what you call it the soul, I prefer consciousness, goes out of the body. We all know the one about the going to stealing or lurking down on the operating table. But it gets even more interesting than that. I have a source of a doctor who had a patient who's in a coma, had a near-death experience, and he went out of the room, the doctor did. The patient's lunch came, and he said, well, he can't, eat it in a coma. So he ate the doctor's lunch, or the patient's lunch. And after the coma, the patient said, oh, I saw you ate my lunch. And he saw it, but it was a few rooms away. And he said that you were really upset about, unhappy about an intern and the way they were treating you. And the doctor said, well, that got my attention.
Can I ask you a question real quick, Mark? Mark.
Yeah, sure.
That particular story, where did you hear that story at?
Well, you can see it on the tape. It's one from Parnia. It's called Rethinking Death. And if
so you saw it on the tape
first. Yeah.
You saw it on a tape. And the name of the tape was what again? Yeah, go ahead.
Rethinking Death.
Okay, so you saw a documentary style thing about near-death experiences and about spirituality and about the afterlife, and it included a story from somebody saying that they had this experience with no verification. It's just their anecdotal story that they told on a documentary style thing that you watched, which happened to be focused on this topic.
So,
right, doctors lie,
credits?
and doctors tell stories.
Pardon?
And,
Did
and
it
like
have
the
credits?
thing is, that's a good question.
And Forrest, I'm gonna tell you why I asked that, okay? Because I as soon as he said that, I had a flashback to something that was on the Discovery Channel, and this is when I thought the Discovery Channel was something that was really like verifiable. This is valid, and it was a documentary on mermaids, and it was so impressive. And like they had done an incredible job. Yeah, what? They done such a credible job. And I got to the whole end and I was like, oh, this is amazing. Aquatic apes. This is real. This makes so much sense. And then the credits started rolling. And then I watched the credits and then it said doctor as such and such. See, like at that moment, you kind of know like, oh yeah, this is not that. And so like, I wasn't being facetious. I wasn't being tongue in cheek. I was literally curious. Were there credits for this?
Oh, I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I mean.
These
Like
are
that's one of the things that
totally
got me into science communication, because that pseudo documentary fooled so many people. It was meant to be not serious, and they had like a 2-second little card at the beginning saying, "Hey y'all, this is a joke. This isn't real." And then they played
like a
it on
prank you.
national television, and most people didn't see that freaking little card, and they believed it was. And I was like,
Right.
this is so egregiously
Oh, yeah.
stupid. We need to change science
Well, this
communication,
is-
and it's one of the reasons why I got into it. And so, like, here's the thing, man, is that like you're saying that your evidence, the word you used was proof.
Well,
Proof.
there's a lot more than
And
that.
it's not what
let me
I
get on
get.
to
It. The
anecdote
thing
number
you
2.
gave me, as proof that near-death experiences are not just physiological but have a spiritual component, is one time you
Right.
heard a guy say a thing on a pseudo documentary about this stuff that is meant to
No.
sell
It's not a
this message.
pseudo-documentary.
How could you tell
It's
the
an
difference?
actual-
How do you know?
Well, because it's the guy who, Dr. Parnia, he's based in NYU. It's full of, has all kinds of medical credentials.
And so here's the
And
question.
he's not,
Here's the question
he's
to
not
you,
a
Mark.
religious person.
This person, that's fine. Here's the question to you. What is more likely, that this dude made it up and told a story in order to get on camera and get some money, or that he was talking about eating this dude's lunch and being mad at the intern and everything, and this guy in a subconscious state heard a little bit of it while he was under anesthesia and understood it in a way that he didn't understand, and it kind of came into like a dream-like thing, and it worked the same way that we sometimes see coma patients having some memory of being under and all these, or maybe it was just like a thing that was like Darante was suggesting, it was just a fake show that they were putting on this performance together. The doctor wasn't lying for clout or money. He was just an actor. Or maybe the other example is that actually this is all super true, and this is the only legitimate documentation we have of this, which is also still just an anecdotal story and doesn't have any legitimate documentation at all. Like, what do you think is the most likely scenario here? I would like an answer to that question.
It's real and it's legitimate, and medical people. I mean, just look at the tape and you'll see.
I'm not going to watch whatever weird ass tape,
works.
because that's the thing. That's the thing, man. Anybody can say anything. I would like an experiment. I would like something that's actually verifiable, repeatable, shows me something that means something, not just some guy said a thing one time.
Okay, well, it's not just one guy.
You started this by asking us. You started us by asking us what our preconceptions about near-death experiences are, and I never gave you an answer. But like, my answer would actually elucidate why I am so skeptical of what you're saying to me here. What happens a lot with near-death experiences, you hear this light at the end of the tunnel thing, which sounds an awful lot like the exact same kind of tunnel vision that you get when your brain is starved of oxygen. I got that the first time I donated blood, because I suddenly lost a pint of blood. I'm anemic and didn't know it, and my body shut down, and I saw the exact same thing that people say they saw in near-death experiences. I heard different things because my hearing shut down the same way, because that's expected. I will. I am currently answering the question you asked me, so just chill the fuck out and let me finish. So my organs, my senses shut down in the exact order and in the exact way that would be expected from a physiological perspective, and those happen to look a lot like what people talk about when they talk about near-death experiences. And what I find interesting is that what isn't easily explainable by physiology and psychology, that they review their lives because they're confronted with death and they wonder what kind of person they've been and all these things, what can't be easily chalked up to that happens to fall in line with their personal religious beliefs. Hindus see Vishnu and Krishna and all these things. Christians see Jesus and all, and Muslims see Allah, Muhammad. Like, it always aligns with their personal beliefs, and everything else falls in line with what we'd expect from physiology and what we'd expect from psychology. And that brings me to the last thing, which is that my philosophy involves a lot of the concept of memento mori, remember death at all times. I think about death every day. I think about the fact that I'm going to die almost every day. I think about how short my life is. I plan out parts of my life thinking, if I'm really lucky, I got 70 years, so I got to figure out this because it's going to take 3, and I got to chalk that up. You know what I mean? And so, like, I have a lot less regrets and a lot less worry about things like that than other people that I know who are religious that don't think about that. When someone is suddenly confronted with their mortality that they haven't been thinking about, they've been pushing off, it makes sense that they would review that very suddenly and say, what kind of person have I been? Have I been an asshole? Have I done things right? Their life flashes before their eyes. They relive memories. These are things that we not only see consistently, but also we would expect philosophically, psychology, physiologically. We would expect these things. So you asked me at the beginning, what is my preconceived notions of near-death experiences? Is that they are expected and they're in no way proof of anything supernatural. And your claim here that there's some dude who said some stuff is anecdotal evidence that doesn't do anything for me. Do you have a response to that? Or do you just want to move on to the next thing as if I'd said nothing?
I'm going to move on to the next thing. It's not just one dude, it's a lot of dudes.
That's about right. That's about right.
Okay, here's another doctor. And he said he was called.
Were they on the same documentary?
No. Well, I don't know. He might be on this one. It's a fairly famous story.
Can you ensure that the next doctor you tell us about is involved with a different project, so that way we just make sure we're not dealing with the same apple from the same tree?
Yes. Different patients.
Okay.
He's called to go to check on a suicide or suicide attempt. He comes in and the woman she's unconscious. So he goes down the hall and talks to the roommate who explains the situation to her.
Mark, can I tell you where you're going wrong at already? Would you take some constructive criticism?
Yeah, sure.
You're giving me a preamble, and nothing you're giving me in the preamble speaks to any evidence of what your claim is, which lets me know what you define as evidence is actually not evidence, which is something that both Forrest and I have highlighted. You use the word proof, and then what you gave as your exhibit A for proof was, I watched a documentary. You know what I'm saying? That is an immediately red flag. And then what you took it a step further and said, in the documentary, they said this guy is a medical professional, right? So now my problem with this is that this is an appeal to authority for you. So if I just put anybody in front of you and say this person has a PhD, and I package it in front of a presentation, which is very popular in this country right now, you're going to look at that and say, because they told me that this guy is a doctor, and because this guy who they told me is a doctor said this, that now this is proof that this is true. The problem is that does not meet the standard of proof, my friend. That does not meet the standard of evidence. What that just means is you found somebody who said something and you agree with what they said. So that's the problem with the story you're telling us. The story you're telling us is trying to appeal to sensationalism. And this is what I really want you to understand. I don't feel like you're being intellectually dishonest, but I feel like your lack of intellectual humility is robbing you of intellectual honesty, in the sense of you're giving yourself permission to know stuff that you didn't actually try to know. So what you're saying is, someone said something that was intriguing to me, and instead of me taking those extra steps of investigating to see if this is foundationally true, I just decided that this resonates with me, so it must be true. And the proof of that is you haven't given us anything that you've actually investigated to determine that this is foundationally true. You're about to give us another anecdotal story of something you heard. And I'm telling you, that's the wrong way to go if you're trying to present evidence or proof.
Okay, well, let me tell you who the authority is. The guy who did the show is Dr.
No, you missed it. You missed it. The moment you said, let me tell you who the authority is.
It's fine. I have different questions about the authority.
NPR.
Yes.
Okay, please.
Okay, cool.
Let me know when I can talk.
How do you tell the difference between the anecdotal stories of this doctor who had this near-death experience or had a patient with a near or whatever, and Dr. Deepak Chopra, who says that you can use quantum physics to heal wounds and shit, and is a medical doctor, and says that you can use your if you don't understand quantum physics enough, then you can change the whole world and change your life and change medicine and all these things. How do you tell the difference between his claims and this Dr. Near-Death Experience guy?
Well, NPR can, and they vet their
NPR
guests
can.
very carefully. Yeah.
How can you
They've got
tell the
more
difference, Mark?
resources than I
How
do.
can you tell the difference? But so no, NPR is a news organization, so they probably did vet to make sure this doctor was a real doctor. But then they brought him on air to say interesting things, to get views, to have a conversation. It does not mean everything he said was true about near-death experiences because he was on NPR. It means he probably wasn't lying about being a doctor. So how can you tell the difference between if you had that, you watch these documentaries or whatever, and this doctor says, this patient talked to me about stuff that they saw while they were out of their body and all these things. This person tells the truth. And then you watch another doctor on another documentary who says the same thing and they're lying for money. How do you tell the difference between the two of those?
Well, this is all on one documentary. And
you said it was different ones.
Different doctors.
You just said it was different ones.
Well, a different story on the same video.
Okay, so it's again, you watched a documentary thing which had a set message that was trying to sell you on a story, and you bought it. And you're telling, did you know, have you ever heard of this documentary? There's a documentary called What the Bleep Do We Know, which is all about the law of attraction and how the way you think changes your body. And if you have happy thoughts, you'll release special peptides that make you healthy, and you send messages out to the universe, and the universe it's a documentary. And there are lots of people there who are doctors who are on that documentary saying ridiculous ass shit. Is it true because it's a documentary, or is it just people who, oh my God, dude, get off of your own dick and listen to people who are giving you constructive criticism. There are plenty of documentaries out there with plenty of doctors saying plenty of dumb shit. I'm asking you, Mark, how do you vet these claims? Because I guarantee I can find you a documentary with doctors in it talking about how there is no such thing as an afterlife. And it wouldn't mean anything to you because you don't agree with it.
Well, this guy he's a medical doctor. He says he has no religious thoughts at all. This is not Deepak Chopra.
Okay, I'm going to ask you the same question I asked you a minute ago now, so that maybe you can try to answer it this time. How do you tell the difference between a bullshit documentary with bullshit doctors, or maybe even real doctors who are saying things that aren't true, versus a documentary where doctors are saying things that are true? If they're both saying the same thing and you don't have anything beyond anecdotal evidence, how do you tell the difference between things that are wrong and things that are right about near-death experiences?
Well, you look at the credits and you see what the guy's credentials are. He's the head of the department at NYU.
Are there doctors who work at NYU or such prestigious places as NYU who have been wrong about things before?
Oh, I'm sure there are. But you have to look at this video.
So then here we are where you have a video, one video, which is a documentary that is meant to sell you on a story. Just like the documentary, What the Bleep Do We Know, is meant to sell you on a story and has medical doctors in it saying that you can think your way to health and use quantum physics to change your riches and bring you great wealth and prosperity in your life. Do you think that those doctors in What the Bleep Do We Know are also all truthful, credible people, and that you, Mark, can change the way you think on a daily basis and become rich and prosperous?
Well, you're saying that all documentaries are equal somehow.
Nope, that's not at all what I said. That is not at all what I said.
You're asking me to prove everything is credible that I see. I can't prove you're credible.
I'm asking you, All you have is anecdotal evidence from a documentary that you haven't vetted the credibility of. You vetted the credibility maybe of one of the people on it, but that doesn't mean that they're correct. And it doesn't mean that what they're saying makes any fucking sense. That's just a guy saying a thing is not a scientific study, nor is it a reason to believe, nor does it go against anything that either Darante or I said at the beginning when you asked us, what do we already think about NDEs? And we both gave you thoughtful, detailed answers that you responded to by saying, well, let me know when I can talk. Like, dude. Yes. We tried to give you good answers, and everything you've given us for 20 minutes now is, yeah, but I heard a guy say a thing, and he's a doctor.
Yeah.
And that doesn't help.
Bruh.
Well,
I know a lot of doctors.
9 million.
Dr. Phil's a doctor.
NDEs in the United
Dre.
States.
Dr. Dre
There's two
is a
Dr.
doctor.
Dre's, by the way.
What's the joke I missed?
Oh, man. Say that again, Mark.
What's the joke? I missed it.
Oh, there are a lot of doctors. There are a lot of people who use a lot of doctors. A lot of people who call themselves doctors. Yeah, it's. But like, no, I think what you're missing is the point that you're saying, I believe this because they told me this guy is a doctor. And then I looked at the credits, and the credits also said he is a doctor. And the truth of the matter is, man, you could have looked at his degree, his transcript, and everything. And all of that could have confirmed he was a doctor. I think, and Forrest, correct me if I'm wrong, it was Sir Isaac Newton, who was one of the most brilliant people on this planet, who thought that he could turn iron into gold. Okay?
He drank mercury.
So someone being a doctor, someone being an expert in a field does not equate to the truth, sir. This is why we have epistemology. So you would still have to take that extra step. If you are so convinced, which I do not believe you are, if you are so convinced, then you would take that extra step to confirm that which you are convinced of. And what you're telling us is where you stopped on your journey is you watched a documentary. And I'm telling you, that's intellectually dishonest, man. Like, why would you even start there? If you were serious about this, go further than the documentary. Try to verify their claims in the documentary, which is obvious you've not done here. What you thought we were going to be impressed by is this scientist, this doctor has a degree, therefore truth. And it's like, no, sir, the standard is higher over here.
Well, NPR vetted him as one of the top specialists in the nation.
I don't know how to get this through to you. I don't know how to get this through to you. They vetted him to show that he was indeed a doctor. Deepak Chopra is also a doctor. He has an MD. He is a real doctor. He has been vetted as a real doctor. Ben Carson is a real doctor. He actually is Ben Carson was vetted not just as a doctor, but one of the best neurosurgeons in history. And he believes and he believes that the pyramids in Egypt are motherfucking grain silos and that the earth is 6,000 years old. He's not a fucking intelligent person. He's just a very good doctor. So, like, I'm sorry. You have this guy who's a doctor who said some dumb shit, and NPR vetted him and showed that he was, in fact, a good doctor. Wonderful. That tells me nothing about spirituality, nor does it tell me anything about the existence of a soul or any of this other stuff you're saying. I have two other questions for you, because I hope they get through, because it sounds to me, Mark, like you've got a list of thought stoppers that you just keep running up against. There are plenty of doctors out there who would recommend acupuncture to treat certain illnesses, to increase blood flow in certain areas, to release muscle tension, things like that. There is no credible evidence for the efficacy of acupuncture, which is why it isn't actually good medicine. And there is good, actually, when they test it, they find no difference between people who place needles randomly and the best, most expert trained acupuncture science peoples, right? So, based on that, do you think that we should be believing in acupuncture and using acupuncture in hospitals?
That's not what we're talking about. It's not about.
That's
It's about
not. I
NDEs.
know. I know it isn't.
And
I
if
am
any-
giving you an example. So would you please answer my question? Do you think that we should be bringing acupuncture into modern everyday medicine? Yes or no?
I don't have an opinion on that. I haven't studied it. This I've been studying for 2
Okay.
years.
I'm giving you
Right.
the same quality of evidence that you are giving me. There are, in fact, people with doctorates, both medical doctorates and all sorts of things, that actually believe in acupuncture. There's no credible scientific evidence to back it up. But some doctors think it works. Should we be trusting it?
I'm not going to comment on acupuncture. I have not studied it.
Because it would expose the fact that when it's something you don't personally want to be true, you're okay with saying either I don't know or I don't believe it. But when it comes to something like a near-death experience that you personally like, you're willing to say, I can't do research on this. There is no credible evidence for this, but some fucking doctor said it's true, so it is.
Yep.
Why do you have a different kind of thinking for near-death experiences than you do for other things like acupuncture?
Well, I'm very aware
Because
that
you're also not. You also
at
haven't
all.
researched near-death experiences. Like
You
the
have
answer
not.
you gave for acupuncture should have been the same answer you gave for near-death experiences. I haven't researched this. I've just seen one documentary, so I shouldn't have an opinion on it. Okay.
I've researched
So why have we
research
been
for
talking
years.
about a
What research have you
documentary
done?
for half an hour?
What research have you done?
I've listened to about 30 plus
I'm sorry.
anecdotal experiences on YouTube.
Thank you for using the word anecdotal. Research
Did he do that?
is
Well,
not. He did. I asked him what research he did, and he said, your words, Mark, that we all just heard were, I've listened to 30 plus anecdotal stories about it. That is not research.
Well, tell me when
That
it's
is
my turn.
stories. Mark, I need you to shut the fuck up with this shit about tell me when it's my turn, because it's incredibly disrespectful, and it shows that you don't give a fuck about anybody's opinion but your own. You just actually said out loud with your own fucking mouth that you think listening to 30 stories is research. That tells me that you have no actual interest in what is true and what is not. You just like fucking stories. I promise you, I can find you 30 stories about Bigfoot. I can find you 30 stories about acupuncture. I can find you 30 stories about gods that you don't believe in. Not one of them is true. And the way that we can tell they are true is by actual research, actual evidence, actual data for which there is zero for near-death experiences. Sorry, dude. Like, if you don't take this shit seriously, then I don't take you seriously. Then give me some. Give me some actual, credible reason to believe in this that isn't just, I heard some asshole say it once.
Well, if you take 10 anecdotes, you've got 10 anecdotes. If you've got 1,000, you start to have data. And that's what it is with the near-death experience.
No, that's not how that works.
It's still,
I don't know why you won't let me talk.
Anecdotes. You then need to do like actual analysis on these things. Where are the statistics on this? Where are the double-blind studies on this? Where is the actual case study on this? Where is like the literature review on this? Why is it always just some guy said it happened and it's different? Because when the other guy in the other religion said it happened and it was completely different, that one wasn't real. But this one was. Why is it just stories? If I tell you, if I'm arguing with you about evolution or something, and I tell you that X amount of doctors said that evolution is real, do you believe it?
You do? I don't know why you. If you weren't so defensive, you let me speak a little bit more.
I'm not defensive. I'm annoyed and bored. You keep just dodging questions and ignoring real thinking. I asked you a question just now. I teach about evolution for a living. If the way that I taught you about evolution was to say that I saw 30 doctors say it was real, do you think you should believe in evolution based on that?
So I believe in evolution very strongly.
That's not what I asked you.
I know.
I asked you if I told you that 30 doctors told me on a documentary they believed in evolution, is that good enough reason to believe in evolution?
That question is irrelevant.
Oh,
That's not
okay.
what I asked you.
I
I asked you if 30 plus doctors on a documentary say they believe in evolution, is that a good reason to believe in evolution?
Well, it would weight it heavily.
That's not what I asked you. What I asked you was, is it a good enough reason to believe in evolution?
No.
Exactly. And nor is it a good enough reason to believe in near-death experiences, because what you actually need is serious data. You need testable, novel predictions based on the model that you have developed around the data that you've actually collected and reviewed at an upper level. Not just stories, actual science. And you've got none of that. You've got 30 dudes who said some things that you like. And that is not how thinking works, Mark.
No, it's based on thousands of people. And the basic stats are that almost half of the people say that they have literally moved out of their body and seen things in adjoining rooms.
Dude, it could have been 7 billion people. It's still a documentary and not evidence,
Exactly.
Mark. At this moment, I think you're working really hard to demonstrate that you do not want to understand. Like, I'm trying really hard not to say some mean things right now. I'm trying hard. I'm trying hard. But Mark, it is clear that what you are saying is, I believe in something ridiculous and you should believe it too. And like, come on, bro. Like, listen, I normally don't get on people for believing in bullshit. But in this case, when you take your bullshit and try to gaslight other people into thinking that something is wrong with them for recognizing that you're being irresponsible, dishonest, and just ultimately, like, you made a claim about data. You literally said that, no, when you have this amount of anecdotes, at that moment, it's not anecdotes, it's data. That was your statement. Now, when we asked you about acupuncture, you said, I don't have any expertise in that area, so I can't speak on it. Can I ask you, Mark, are you a data analysis? Are you a data analyst, Mark? Is that what you are? Is that what your specialist, your area of specialty is?
No, I guess you are.
I am. I actually am. I'm a project manager, man. I actually have my project management professional certificate, and I am a data analyst manager. So yes, I am, which is why it offends me when you had the humility to step back from acupuncture, which is bullshit. But then when it came to data, just pretended like you could just make some shit up and say it as if nobody would notice it. And I feel like that's what you lean into. You specialize in saying things that you don't think other people know about it. And in this case, you walked into the wrong ring. You didn't recognize that you brought a knife to a fucking gunfight, bruh. And this is sad because I honestly thought this was going to be an interesting conversation. And at this moment, I'm not even interested in talking to you anymore.
Yeah, I'm kind of over it, Mark.
It's a dialogue.
Oh fuck! Well, we came here for conversations, not dialogue. So I guess if that's the hairs we're splitting, good gravy, dude. Learn.
Okay, wait a second.
Learn how scientific thinking works, and you know a lot about documentaries. Yeah, no, we all do. They're great things. Everything. Did you know that everything that's ever been said in a documentary is true? I did. That's you're not. It's legal. It's illegal to publish. It's illegal to publish a documentary that isn't 100% true. That's real facts, y'all.
Tell me when I can talk,
Mark. Oh, you can't. I'm bored of your call, and we're gonna move on because you're not taking this seriously, and I don't know why you expect us to take you seriously when you don't take this seriously. You just believe stories that you like, and frankly, man, that fucking sucks. It's a massive waste of everybody's time. So we'll talk to you later, man. Or unless we don't, call in or don't. Bye.
Peace out.
I'm not gonna let him fucking pitch his script about the next thing that he wants to do.
A-Town down. That's all I got for that.
So funny. Oh, that's so rough. It's so rough. I don't want to be mean on a call. I really don't. But like, if every single fucking time somebody's presenting you with a reason why your thinking is faulty, well, let me know when I can talk. I'll just be here.
Oh, yeah.
Poor woe is me. Yeah. Just, dude, you're just waiting for your turn to start rambling again. And very clearly, like I mentioned, so many of those things were just thought stoppers. There wasn't actually an argument there. It was just, well, a doctor said it. Well, the documentary said it. Well, NPR said it. Like, oh, neat. Cool.
Oh,
do you have any background in this that you could analyze it in any critical way? No. Okay, then maybe you should take that with a grain of salt. But then when it comes to some other thing that you don't have a background in, I don't have a background in that. What do you ask? That's irrelevant. My goodness. Are you crazy? Oh.
It's like my early days of playing Super Mario Brothers, and you're running and you jump in the hole, and then you say, I'm going to try it again, but you jump in the same hole because you don't actually do something different. You do the same thing over and over again. Like, why did you jump back in the same hole, man?
Why you keep doing it? Why'd you keep doing it? Let's move on to James, pronoun he, him, calling in from Mighty Oranges. Great big, like Kern River, you know what I mean? Yeah. James says he has evidence for God. So let's talk about that. Right. James, you are on the line with Forrest and Darante. How are you doing today?
Hi, James.
I'm doing absolutely fantastic. Thank you.
Me too, man. That's awesome. All right. Tell me really quickly, please, what God are you claiming you have evidence for first? Let's start there.
Well, I'm for the Most High God, but I come to God through the Christian experience.
Okay, so that immediately, like, I have questions, but like it's not going to be super helpful because you say like the Most High God, like I'm like, okay, so Allah, but then you say Christianity. I'm like, okay, well, I'm not sure.
Excuse me, the unknown God. I come to the unknown God through Christianity. Oh. I'm sorry, Yeah, the unknown God, not Allah. The God I've come in contact with is unknown, but he brought me in through the Christian experience.
Okay, James, really quickly, I'm getting some crackling from your mic. Would you mind backing off your mic just a little bit, just to make sure that doesn't happen so much?
Okay, how's that? You all right?
That's a little better. That's fine.
Okay. All right.
So really quick, I just want to clarify. You said that this is an unknown God. Does that mean that it's Does that mean that it's unknown to everybody? That you are the only one who has experienced it?
Unknown to everybody,
but known to
unknowable. You. No, God is unknowable. You can't know God. We don't have enough intelligence to know God. But God works through intermediaries.
Okay, I'm trying to understand. I really, really am. You say God is unknowable. You mean to say that, like, you know he exists, or you can't know he exists, or like you do know he exists, but you don't know anything about him?
You can't know he exists, but I know he exists through a Christian experience. Came in me to the understanding that God exists.
Okay. I'm having a hard time understanding, but I'm hoping we can kind of get there a little bit more. So, like, tell me about what's
your name again? What's your name again? I didn't really get it.
My name is Forrest.
Forrest.
Yeah.
Forrest. Okay, now what are you, a biologist, or what are you?
Yeah, I am a biologist. Yes.
Okay, so you study biology. You're a scientist.
Yes.
Is that right? Okay, well, you can say some things to me about science that would be no way for me to know about it except I had to study. And to get to where you at in your study, I don't think I could make that trip. But you could tell me some things. I would just have to take your word for it about biology. I couldn't prove what you were saying is true because I wouldn't even know how to begin to understand it. I'd have to go back and start at the beginning and work myself up to where you are.
Okay, and so you're saying that it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Are you saying that it's the same kind of situation with this God, that the God is so long?
So just think about it. Just think about it. We're still discovering stuff today that's been here all the time. You say, I think you were talking about we're getting into AI and biological stuff that was unheard of 1,000 years ago. Didn't even enter in people's mind. But now we are discovering these things, but they always been here. But we didn't know it.
Oh.
Okay.
So are you saying
So-
AI has always been here?
Pardon me?
You saying AI has always been here and we didn't know it?
I think he's saying like the ability to do shit like that.
Okay.
No, I'm
No,
saying,
yeah.
what I'm saying is, Darante, is this here. Protons and neutrons have been here always, but we didn't know that it was something smaller than the atom till we split it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. So here's the thing for me is that like I appreciate where you're coming from. I really do, because that's a lesson that I teach all the time. It's like, you talk about atoms, right? Back in the days of the ancient Greeks, hypothesized about something like atoms, but we had no way to prove it.
Hold up, Forrest. Excuse me now. I'm not no scientist. This is what I think I heard about atoms. After the atom was
you don't
split,
have to be.
Then they found stuff inside of it. I'm just
that's what I'm getting to.
When they
it's just that
atom. Yeah, go ahead. I'm just
what I'm trying to explain is that, like, back in the ancient days of like the Greeks, like thousands of years ago, we had ideas about atoms, and it took thousands of years for us to demonstrate that they were real. And then it took decades after that to demonstrate that they had a different shape. And then we learned a little bit more about what they were made of. And then we learned a little bit more about what the position of those parts were. And so we're learning new stuff all the time about atoms. And even right now, the model that we have for atoms isn't perfect. And we know there's stuff that we have left to learn about them.
Good.
But what we see over the course of history is a progression of knowledge about them, where we are. It's not like tomorrow we're going to learn something new and we're going to learn that atoms don't exist. It's that we might learn something new that tells us that atoms are a little bit different than we thought. And so that's what we see over the course of history with that, is like we are changing our mind based on new evidence. And you're talking to me about God here and saying that God is something so incredible that like we just don't have comprehension of it yet. And I'm wondering if there is a similar progression of knowledge that's at least gotten us to where we are now. Did we used to know less about God, and now we know more, that we have a better understanding of something that's getting us closer at least to the idea of what you think God is? Or do you think that it is so unbelievably beyond us that we have never known anything meaningful and could never know anything meaningful?
Well, I think you misunderstood me. I'm saying there are some things that are unknowable right now. God is one of those things. You can know God in some kind of comprehension, but how you gonna fully know God right now?
But
when there's
do
so
you think
many other things that you don't know?
But I'm sorry, do you think that we could eventually, sometime in the future, be intelligent and technologically advanced enough that we could actually really know God?
I do. I believe that.
Okay, so you think that there is such a thing as a God, but that we don't have the ability right now to understand it, but eventually we possibly could. Is that? I just want to make sure I'm understanding you. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. I'll accept that. Yeah, I'll go along with that.
Gotcha. Okay, I just want to make sure I'm understanding where you're coming from.
Good. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah. I have a couple of different questions, but like Darante, if you're still here and you want to stick with this, then I'm cool with that, because I was going to move on to the next thing, but I don't want to.
Yeah, I just want to ask James, because you say God is unknowable, beyond comprehension.
Right now. God is unknowable right now.
But also, James, right now you're making a claim that you know God. Do you not see the problem with that?
Well, I think it's a terminology. I know that there is a God, but I don't know enough of that God to tell you what that God, all that God is. But I know there is a God.
You're right.
But I don't know.
James.
I can spell your name.
Oh my goodness, James, you about to make me cuss you the fuck out, bro. James. You're using the word wrong. You're right. You're right. It's a terminology problem, James.
Yeah.
I am rude, James. That word don't mean a damn thing to me. I can be rude, nasty, whatever the fuck you want to call me. It don't mean a damn thing. As long as I'm not a dumbass, James, I'm really happy. I'm really happy, James. I got a smile on my face. I got a little buzz on too, bro. Like I am really okay. I I am so good, James. James, I am so good. Like, oh my goodness, thank
I
you.
applaud you. I applaud
But James,
you.
you are absolutely right. It is a terminology issue. God cannot be unknowable and yet known by you at the same time. So what you should have accurately stated is, I believe there is a God. But by the same token, I also believe that God is unknowable. Therefore, I should have the fucking intellectual humility and honesty to say that I can't make any claims about that God until that God is indeed knowable. Because if you are claiming that a God is unknowable, shut the fuck up, James. If you are claiming that a God is unknowable, then you are introducing people to a God that they can't know, which makes you useless as fuck, James. That makes you just as useless as the God you're peddling. And it breaks my heart that you don't recognize that.
I needed it.
Now I'll hand it back over to Forrest for the next question, because I'm not going to like you, James.
No, I'm willing to let James respond to you, because I have a different line of questioning that I think might help elucidate the situation. But let's see, make sure James is brought on there. Yeah, James, I'll let you respond to Darante first.
Okay, what do I need to respond to?
I figured.
What he just
figured.
Said. Yeah.
That's how can I say that God is unknowable, but you can know God? That's what I want.
How can you say that God is unknowable and yet you make claims about God as if you know this God?
Well, it's the same way about my father. As a child, I didn't know my father.
Not.
I knew his name. I knew what he looked like. I knew his name. I knew he was my father, but I didn't know who he was.
Sir, if you knew what he looked like, you knew him, sir. Like, stop it, James. Stop it.
I'll say we got it. This is another terminology question. One more terminology question.
Oh my goodness.
It's terminology, Darante.
So
no,
here's
James,
the thing for me, James.
It's epistemology. It's epistemology.
Who am I
James.
talking to now? Who am I still talking to now?
James, hi, it's Forrest. I have a question for you. Like, I think the hang up that Darante and I are having here is that, like, go back to the talking about atoms, right? Like I said, thousands of years ago, the ancient Greeks came up with the idea of atoms, and it took thousands of years for us to demonstrate they were actually real, and then we were still wrong about them.
Did the ancient Egyptians know anything about atoms before the Greeks?
I don't think so. I think Aristotle was the first person to talk about atoms in a way that we could recognize.
Well, we don't have anything written in hieroglyphics that say that the Egyptians knew anything about atoms.
I don't think so. I could be wrong about that, but I
so
know for sure.
Really commit. Yeah, so you really can't comment on that because you haven't studied it yet.
Well, I have no evidence of that. I'm also I don't think.
But I have evidence. I have evidence of a God, but I don't know God.
But here's the thing. What I'm trying to get across to you is that, like, when the ancient Greeks talked about atoms, when Aristotle talked about atoms, the word atom comes from the Greek word atomos, which means undividable. And the reason why it is that is because
atom is something that is undividable. So they named it after an Egyptian word.
No. Here, just hear me out. I promise I'm getting.
That's what he's doing.
Yeah, I'm not trying to get you like on a science lesson here. I'm really trying to explain a concept. So please just hear me out for a second, okay? Is that like so Aristotle asked a philosophical question. He said, if I take this piece of iron and I split it in half, I now have half of the iron. If I split that in half, I now have a quarter of the iron. If I split that in half, I have an eighth of the iron, but it's still iron. And if I split that in half and that in half and that in half and half and half and half and half, how far can I split something in half before it isn't iron anymore? And the philosophical question was, is there something that is like a fundamental piece of what iron actually is? And that is what he called atomos, undividable. The thing that if you were to break that down, it could not be called iron. It's an undividable, fundamental piece of what it means to be iron. And that is exactly what an element is. It is an atom that is a fundamental piece of one particular kind of thing. And so what that was just a philosophical experiment. At that time, there was no scientific reason to believe in atoms. It took thousands of years for us to demonstrate what they were, and then several decades after that for us to then come up with the actual proof that these things were elements, that there really was such a thing as a fundamental piece of iron. And then, as you pointed out, we were then able to divide the undividable and find out that there were even smaller parts. But Aristotle was ultimately right. If you break down an iron atom, it's not iron anymore. And so here's where I'm at with this, is that you're coming at this with this idea of God as if we are at the level of the Greeks. We have this basic understanding, a philosophical approach to an unknowable God that we don't have the means to test. And we are as far away from understanding God, at least, as the ancient Greeks with their philosophy were from 1950s and 40s, when we were actually learning a little bit about atoms, and even before then, but it doesn't matter. But like the point is, like in the 1900s, when we're learning what atoms are and actually splitting them and actually learning about them. And I can appreciate that perspective. As a scientist, I can. Mm-hmm. What bothers me about it is that there have been plenty of other scientific ideas that have started out with that same philosophical, logical approach, but never found the evidence. And in fact, they found evidence that went in the other direction. Lamarckism, for example. Lamarck was an ancient evolutionary biologist who believed that if you cut a tail off a rat, all of its babies would have no tails, because that's how heredity worked. And that wasn't true. And later on down the line, we proved that wasn't true. But philosophically, with what we knew about heredity at the time, it made sense. And so how do we, like, my question to you now that I've rambled for a minute, thank you for letting me. My question to you, James, is how, if we're at this level where we don't understand this and all we have is that philosophical intuition, how are you so confident in saying that you will be vindicated in thousands of years, rather than just having the humility to say, I don't know if this is true or not. I like the idea, but I have no way to be sure. That is my question to you, James.
Well, first of all, I believe that is a unified theory, a unified theorem. I believe that, and I believe there are a lot of scientists who are definitely pursuing that.
Sure. To no avail so far.
Pardon me?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I was just saying, like, to no avail so far. So once again, that's a really great thing, but we don't have proof of it yet.
Okay, well, going back to your thoughts on the so-called philosopher Aristotle, who wasn't really a philosopher, he was really a sophist, but his theory, you said, was good, because you said if you chop it in half, it'll still be that. But we got to the point where it wasn't that. But that took, I don't know how many thousand years, maybe 2,000 years or something, for we to get to that point.
Something like that,
bring his theory to fruition. Yeah, so it's the same way with God. Well, when we're looking at God, we're not looking at a few thousand years. We're looking at billions of years, man. You know how old the universe is?
13.8 billion years,
So if a God created the universe and it's 13, how many billion years old?
How many?
It's 13.8.
I want to know 13.8 billion years since the Earth, since the universe been in existence. So if there's a God behind that, then how much older is the God? And how time frame short are we? And look at what we have evolved to in those 13 billion years. Look what we all.
And that's a fine question.
Yeah.
And that's a fine question, James. But the question did ultimately start with the word "if," and that "if" is doing a lot of heavy lifting for you. If atoms are real, we can demonstrate it, and we can. But if Lamarckian evolution is real, we can't demonstrate it. Like,
I don't know what that is.
Well, I'm sorry. It was a way of saying what I was talking about earlier. So, like, if atoms are real, then we can demonstrate them, and we do. But if Lamarck's ideas about evolution are real, we should be able to demonstrate it, and we can't.
Oh, about the rat's tail.
Yeah, and that's just one idea that came off the top of my head. There's a bazillion different stories in science.
That has never been true. Was that believed at any time? I never heard of it. Was once upon a time, was that believed?
It was believed.
That once upon a time.
Yeah, and same thing with like with
how long was it believed?
A couple of decades. It took a few decades because it took a few decades for it to be like thoroughly dismissed.
Decades, and they believed that for like 20-something years. They've been chopping rats' tails off for 20 years. They've been chopping rats' tails off for 20-something years.
Let me give you,
never seen a book.
I tell you what, let me give you a slightly different example, if you'll allow me. There was a guy back in, let me find the exact dates because I don't want to steer you wrong here. Hold on just a second. When was Galen around? It was the 1st century. Yeah. So Galen, there was this guy named Galen, who was a Roman and Greek physician, surgeon. He was he practiced medicine. And he was around in like 100 to 200 CE. Okay. So 100 to 200 CE, this guy's living thousands of years ago. And he is a scientist. He's a doctor. And he is studying like the human body and how to do medicine, how to do surgery, how to cure diseases and stuff like that. And he writes this whole book about human anatomy. And that book was used to teach about human anatomy for actually like over 1,000 years. Galen was finally debunked in the 17th century. So from the 1st century, from this guy living in 100 to 200 BC or CE, 100 to 200 CE, all the way up to the 1600s, we are reading this book that Galen has talking about how to do surgery on humans, and it's not fucking true because we never tested it and we didn't have the tools to learn more about it. We did, but we didn't use them. So like, that's what I'm talking about here is that like, you have this idea and you're saying that someday, millions and billions of years from now, we will have the ability to understand this God. And I don't understand how you're comfortable doing that when I can tell you a bunch of stories about science where we had an idea that wasn't fucking true and we proved it not true a long time later. And that was dogmatic thinking. That was bad science. That was wrong. And I think that's what you're doing here is you're saying that you like this idea of a God and you have a philosophical reasoning for the God, but you don't have any actual evidence or any data for it. And you're using that lack of evidence as proof that someday you'll have it. And I don't think that's how you should approach this, man. Does that make sense?
Sort of, but I do have evidence. See, we never got to my evidence. We got off on other things. But I got evidence.
Let's talk about your
evidence. My belief in God.
Let's talk about your evidence.
Okay, let's clarify. Hold up, James. Yeah. You have evidence of do you have evidence of your belief in God, or do you have evidence for God? Which one?
Of God.
You have evidence for God.
Evidence of God. Yeah.
All right.
Let's do it.
Let's go. Now, I felt like you were about to start with a scripture, so that scares me a little bit because that's not evidence. And so I'm hoping that's not where you were going with that. And if you were, this is a great time to pivot.
Well, that's where I was going. But I like the other question. I like the question that Forrest had brought up about Galen. And it came off of the scientists cutting off rats' tails to see what they offspring be born tailless. They did this for 20 years. Never saw it happen. But somebody wanted to prove it until it just became so fruitile they just gave it up. When people looked at the evidence, the recorded evidence, they said, look, man, y'all been doing this 20-some years. Ain't nothing happening. Y'all need to quit this. And somebody
it was that we had evidence for Darwinian evolution instead of Lamarckian evolution. So there, Darwin and Lamarck had like competing theories about how this stuff happened. And we found Darwinian work.
But these are two totally different things. They had the evidence right before them for 20 years, cutting off rats' tails for 20 years and never seeing their offspring grow without tails for 20 years. So they didn't have any drugs or anything back then, but they was on, maybe they thought if they discovered this, made it real, then it would make them famous or something. But it seemed like 20 years they did it. but you're talking about Galen now. You say Galen wrote a book on surgery. Now, didn't the Egyptians do surgery 4,000 years before Galen? Did the Egyptians do surgery? Did they do brain surgery? All right, then.
Yes,
so brain surgery was something that had already been understood to a certain extent. Now, but here's the question. Here's the thing I want to say. You listened to Galen for 200-something years, right? Before he got
closer to 2000.
refuted.
Yeah, almost 2000.
I'm sorry. Yes, you say he was born in the 1st or 2nd century. All right, AD.
Yeah.
Right. So 2,000 years, people believed this until more light came on it. And when more understanding came, they were able to see, hey, this ain't the way, because they had a more light, more understanding, more knowledge, more evidence, more procedure, more ways to study things. So I'm looking at Darante. Now, Darante was in church for 20-something years, I think, as a Christian, 20-something years. Now, for the first 10 years, he was deceived. You were deceived for the first 10 years because you thought it was right. But for the next 10 years, you were a deceiver. Now you done got into this kind of work. How can anybody trust anything you say? You were deceived in church. You were the same question. It's the same question. He was deceived in church. Then he became a deceiver. Then he got out of the church. Now what is he now? A deceiver or a truth teller?
James. Listen. Let's walk it through. All right, we'll walk it through. Are you a deceiver right now, James?
No.
Because I'm gonna be honest with you. Both Forrest and I are here tonight. We're both educated men. We're both degreed men, and both of us have identified several things that you've said that have been absolutely bullshit. And not at any moment have we called you a deceiver. Not at any moment have we said you're a deceiver, because what we understand.
But were you a deceiver? Were you a deceiver in the church? Were you a deceiver in the church?
Can you shut the fuck up?
Muted.
What you don't understand, James, is that even in this conversation, you have said stuff that is stupid as fuck. This whole conversation, we've given you the benefit of the doubt. That James isn't trying to deceive us. That James actually believes this bullshit. And what your dumb ass just tried to do is to come at my history. And see, here's the thing that I know, James. Here's the thing that I know. I was born in 1986, James. I've never seen your ass. I don't know you. You've never seen me. You've never walked a day with me. So this was just another moment where you have demonstrated that you make claims of which you have absolutely no way of knowing. So again, you continue to demonstrate your intellectual dishonesty and your intellectual and your lack of intellectual humility. And honestly, bro, you is not on my level. I don't even want to be on the phone with your ass at this moment. You're killing me up here, bro. I'm expecting better. James, please come with something better, man.
Unmuted.
Okay. He's trying to figure out how to do it.
I say, are you through?
If you were listening, you would have known. See, context goes a long way, James. Context goes a long way, brother.
Did you answer the question, were you a deceiver or not? Did you deceive people?
I answered it very thoroughly. I answered it very thoroughly.
Now, since you were a deceiver, how can we know you're not deceiving us now?
Oh, James. Well, but see, James, the thing is, you've demonstrated that you wouldn't know, because, James, all I have to do is grab my degree back here and tell you all the ways that I have doctorates and masters and tell you and all the things that they're in, and that will be just enough information for you. But for the rest of us who have a sound knowledge, we know that the way you know things is not by trusting a person who's saying something. But, I'm going to take a church phrase. You got to get to know it for yourself, baby. And so taking my word for it, that's what the rest of us know. What the rest of us know is it doesn't matter who has a credential. It doesn't matter who has a degree. It doesn't matter who gets praised by anybody else. The only way you know something is when your ass did the work to know it. And you continue to
Have the
demonstrate, James,
experience.
that you are too
When
fucking
you get the
lazy to do the
experience.
damn work.
When you get to this experience, that's when you know.
James,
When you
I
experience
am
it for
done with you,
yourself.
sir. I'm done.
All right. Is the other guy still talking?
You on mute, Forrest.
Oh, fuck, sorry. James, it sounds like you're more interested in doing battle than having a conversation with us at this point. So, like, we're going to move on, but...
I'm having a conversation because we're trying to roll it into different kind of things. Now, you talking about...
But
you misconstrued...
I tried to give you...
Hold up.
James.
Let me clarify. You misconstrued
I'm
one
sorry,
thing
sir.
I said. Okay, go ahead.
I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
man. I tried to give you... I gave you a really careful question about why you are allowing yourself to believe something that you don't, like, you wouldn't believe any other way. You would not use the reason. You wouldn't use the reasons. You would not use the reasons you've been giving me. I'm going to finish this. I'm going to finish this sentence if it kills you. You would not use the evidence you've been giving us and the reasoning you've been giving us for this God to believe in anything else. And when I tried to present you with that and actually get you to talk about the evidence, and we gave you the chance to talk about your evidence, the first and only thing you did was try to attack the credibility of my friend Lamar. And as Lamar, as I'm just Darante, Lamar. Fuck me.
Didn't.
So I'm just going to move on. I think you should call us back. James, I think you should call us back sometime when you can put this in a little bit of a different order, because I think right now, I think you're a little bit all over the place. And I think if you look back at this conversation, you'll see that, like, we really were giving you the benefit of the doubt and we really were following what you were saying, but I don't think we're getting anywhere right now. So we're going to move on to the next caller, but I do genuinely appreciate your call. And I would like to talk to you again someday. Take care, James.
This next blunt is on you, James. It's on you.
Fucking Darante Lamar, otherwise known as Damar. Just
That's not the first time I've gotten that. It's a fusion.
Well, I'll go by Valkai for the rest of the fucking show as well, because it's just so stupid. God.
Oh man, I love it. I love it.
So we've got a few other calls left here. And lines are still open. We've still got 3 people who've been waiting for a while. We've had a bunch of people call in, hang out for a while, and then leave, especially theists. And we had 54 people get a busy signal trying to wait for other people. So if you got a busy signal before, you want to try again, this is your chance. If you believe in a God, especially the person in the chat who is saying that God's real, whether we want to be or not, there's the number at the bottom of the screen, 720-619-2288. Pick up the phone, use the web call link in the description, give us a call. Because as you can see, we are very polite and thoughtful and kind and patient people until you refuse to just, like, follow along with the thought. So as long as you're going to be patient with us, we'll be patient with you. With that,
I smile sometimes.
I'm loving the chat right now. The Valkai Damar.
It's hilarious. I want to write that novel now. Like, that is that sounds like an incredible epic story.
Valkai the luck biologist. Forante. Oh man. Don't ship us. All right. Don't.
Oh snap. Oh damn. I'm gonna want this is too much.
We've got we've got 2 atheists who are on the line, so you're gonna have to wait for a long time. I'm sorry, but let's talk for a second to Nasser. We've talked to Nasser a few times. Nasser's calling in from somewhere in the Middle East, pronouns he, him, is a theist who wants to talk about and this is in quotes, the turmoil that Nasser observes in other Muslims and other theists, as well as within himself. Nasser, you are on the line with Forrest and Darante. How are you doing?
Hello, I'm doing quite well. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So what do you mean by turmoil? What's going on?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, turmoil is the best term I could come up with for myself. It's basically that I'm seeing that there's a lot of concerns or just odd behaviors in the way that the people around me are believing in Islam. And I guess I have some of it too. And I was going to say I have 3 anecdotal stories about it, but I'm thinking I'll mention 2 of them, one of them for another person, one of them for me. And if time permits, maybe I can talk about the 3rd one, which is about what I've seen in evolution when it was taught in the classroom introductorily. Just to clarify, I am a young person still in school, and pretty young, pretty confused about how people behave, as I said last time. And last time I did learn a lot from when you guys, Promise and Forrest, explained to me about dogma, and it's been really refreshing as comparison to, trying to ask these questions to people who are Muslims, the people around me. Honestly, they don't take kindly to the conversation. And my first anecdotal story is going to shine to that. So am I fine to proceed from there?
Yeah. Let's hear what you have to say.
All right. Well, quick trigger warning for the audience is that I'm going to mention a little bit of parental abuse. So there has been some turmoil that I've observed in my mother when I was way younger. Maybe it was 8 or 9 years old. I asked her a question about Allah. And I don't remember the exact question, but it was in the nature of, why did God behave or do things this way when maybe this makes more sense? And my mother's not the greatest person. I don't think she's emotionally mature or anything, but she never hit me, except this one time when I asked this question about God. She slapped me across the face. And in that moment, the only thought in my head was like something along the lines of, well, damn, clearly she has nothing going on in her head in this regard, because I don't think it makes sense. Like, I was 8 or 9. I know it doesn't make sense, but I was thinking there is probably no belief out there that's going to be like, oh yeah, the appropriate response is to slap because I'm so offended. And yeah, it still doesn't make sense to me. And I wrote it off as, my mother is emotionally mature in other ways. I'm like, this is one of them. But I guess it's not too far off from what I see how other Muslims react, kind of, at least around me, react a little strongly to when asked questions. I mean, I can't ask questions about Allah to the people around me at all, that's for sure. I was wondering, what do you guys think, what do you guys make of how my mom reacted and, what this means? Like, is there some sort of battle going on up there? Obviously she doesn't have good reasons for her beliefs if that's what she believed, if that's what she reacted, right? So, yeah.
I mean, yeah, it depends, because sometimes there are people who do respond violently to any questions about their God because they think that God is unquestionable and should not be questioned, and so they respond with that kind of violence. And sometimes they do that because they don't have a good reason to believe, you're right, and they are scared of that question, and they respond to fear with violence like an animal backed into a corner. And so either way, no matter what the reason is, I think that is an unacceptable response, and I'm sorry that happened to you. But I would say that it definitely speaks more to the nature of the belief that your mother holds and why she believes and what she's going through than it does to you as a person, your question, anything like that. If that's the kind of response that comes out of the simple probing of a child, then I think that tells you everything you need to know about that religion. And maybe there's somebody out there that is very much more educated in that religion and way more well versed, and they're a priest or whatever, and they would respond with much more compassion and some nuanced thing. You talk to a Catholic priest, they'll give you a long, nuanced discussion on why God does this or that and the other thing, but it won't be any more intellectually satisfying than a slap across the face. And so, at least your mother was direct about it instead of boring you to death. Could have just she gave you the answer immediately. And so that's, or she showed you the depth of her understanding as very, very quickly. So I think that you should use that as a lesson into what this religion does to people and how frightening it is that somebody would hurt somebody that they love for simply asking a question. Because that is another thing. Maybe she was afraid for you. Maybe she was afraid for your soul that you would question God. So she hit you to keep you in line, to keep you going to heaven. Whatever the case may be, it's unacceptable. But there's a lot of reasons for that kind of response, and not a single one of them means that this points in the direction of this religion being kind, loving, peaceful, good, helpful, anything like that. That's my initial thought. Durante, what do you think?
Forrest, I think you're right on. Honestly, obviously, I couldn't speak to the pathology of your mother at that moment. But I can definitely speak to the harm of of religious indoctrination that features a character that you are mandated to love and revere and to treat as the centerpiece of morality, who gets away with all types of heinous activity against humanity. In that, when you've been indoctrinated into that, it makes it really difficult for you to know when you're crossing the lines of inhumanity. It makes it really difficult for you to know what love is and what love isn't. It creates a delusion, an illusion, damn near an obstruction of your relationships with other people. And so Forrest really hit a lot of the common factors there. There is, if I serve this character who is this unforgiving, this vengeful, then I'm doing this to protect my child from bringing that wrath upon themselves. I don't want them to do that. But then also there's this nuance of, if I've identified with this character, if I pull my identity, my personality from this character, then the way this character treats people is the way that I begin to find it tolerable to treat people. And to me, those are the harms of religion. So again, I couldn't speak to the pathology of your mother for sure, obviously, but this is an excellent example. And as a parent, as one who was, a believer for the majority of my time, this is stuff that I absolutely identify with, because I was definitely one of those parents, spare the rod, spoil the child. And that's what you do. Like the moment you create an unquestionable character who everything that they do is right, then you do give yourself permission to do things that could be harmful to others and often are harmful to others without questioning them. And that becomes very heartbreaking, especially when we have to look back and that's our parents that we're having to wrestle with that with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Dimitri, I think you're right, because it's kind of why I call it turmoil. It's because it seems like they're straying away from what they would normally do in their own humanity, because it doesn't feel like they would be able to do this ordinarily. It's like something here's on top. And as well as according to what Forrest said, Forrest said, yeah, you should take a look at how this religion as a whole. I don't think I should do that directly, although I get your idea. It's like, I do get that religions are capable of making people do things that they wouldn't normally do, much like cults. But of course, to me, I'm seeing this as mostly like as a display of what my mom's personality is, which is not very good. I'm gonna be honest, I don't have a lot of respect for her, even to this day, for a lot of reasons. But this is just like, I would see this as, for my mom at least, it's like she's this way, and that she's immature, and she would do this for a lot of other beliefs. Like if she has bad reasons to believe in this, she probably believes in other things that are not religion for bad reasons. She probably is going to get tricked easier in like online scams and stuff like that. I guess if she believes it for bad reasons, even if I do believe that Islam is true, if she believes it for bad reasons, she believes things for bad reasons. She has a propensity for that.
Yeah, that's the long and short of it. Do you have any other thing? Because like I think this is elucidated. I think it's a useful call for like people who are deconstructing right now to kind of hear and just like have a serious conversation about this. And I appreciate having the call. Is there anything else you wanted to bring up before we move on to the next call?
Yeah, my own turmoil, which I think is going to be a little more interesting because, I'm tackling something on my own. It might be a little scary for me though. So the biggest turmoil I have, if I can go ahead with the turmoil that I have for myself.
Yeah. Go. That's why I wanted to make sure that we weren't just jumping on to the next thing when you had something left. And the good news is I can ask you questions and you can't fucking slap me because I'm all the way in Oklahoma.
Hey man, I have a good visa. I can come over. But I like you.
I love it.
So
tell me about what's going on with you, man.
All right. If I get a little scared here, just don't mind me. So my brother is also a little bit of a weirdo, and this was when I was a little older than 9 and 10, maybe 10 or 12. My brother, for some reason, thought I'm not adhering to Islam good enough, which I kind of wasn't because I was a kid, and I was like, I don't know, I'm not fully in tune for what's going on. It's a little confusing because my brother's like, let me show you the consequences, and he pulled up a YouTube video, and I don't remember it exactly, but it basically depicted of what Islamic hell was, the fire and brimstone kind of thing in Christianity, and all the Islamic verses about people drinking boiling water and eating spikes and being tormented by God. like, oh, God's gonna give you water, but then the water is boiling and haha, and it's like, okay. And the video was a little graphic. There was depicting of a lake of fire, and there was graphics of skeletons burning alive and people screaming, and it was not something you should show to your younger brother. My brother should not have done that, and it did scare me. It scarred me fucking hard, so much so that I didn't sleep for the next 3 days. I'm serious about that. So why did I not sleep? Well, obviously, I don't think that anybody ever in the existence of humanity deserves that kind of torture. That doesn't make sense to me. No, it still doesn't. And what I was doing for the 3 days after that was, well, I was kind of just praying to God, be like, hey, man, don't do that, please. And I was speaking in Arabic and, doing the dua. And anyways, I imagining it is just, so that's turmoil right there. It's in my head. It's happening right now as we're speaking. Everybody can hear it. And it doesn't make sense to me. But then life went on, I guess, because my view hasn't changed. I still think that should never happen. I still think nobody should go to hell. But life goes on. I have school. I'm learning introductory biology in class, well, that was a while ago, but learning about that. And I'm having my friends and I have my hobbies. Life goes on and it's just there now. It's just there in my head. The thing where apparently all that. And also, go ahead.
No, I was going to say that's what you're describing is why religion is such an effective domestication tool for humans. If you want to domesticate an animal, if you want to keep an animal in line, you can hit it and whack it, and you give it a carrot when it does good and a stick when it does bad. For humans, you can make both the carrot and the stick invisible, and they work just as well, if not better. And so you tell them they're going to go to a theme park when they die. If they are good, then they're going to have to go to a place of fire and brimstone and drink boiling water and all these things if they're bad. And it just so happens, if you notice, that good and bad always happen to fall perfectly in line with whatever the person telling you about this stuff happens to think are good and bad, for their own reasons, their own subjective opinions. Yes. I think that was Helen Keller, I believe it was, who said that, every time somebody tells me what God wants, it always happens to be what he wants to. And so you're describing, the same kind of trauma that so many people that we talk to and so many of the hosts on the show have dealt with as well. My wife used to be very, very Christian, and she, after years and years, I think I'm going, over a decade of being an atheist now, still every now and then, going to hell. Oh, yeah, no, I guess I'm not. And it's because literally from the time she could think about what those words meant, she was told, you are broken, you are diseased, you are evil, you are unworthy, you are just this corrupt, disgusting thing. And therefore, it is not only true that you will be burned for all eternity, it is good that you will be burned for all eternity. And when you put that on somebody and you tell them that they are deserving, when you tell a child that they are deserving of that kind of torture just because of the sin of being born who they are, and that they must change themselves fundamentally in order to deserve the dignity and the right to simply not be harmed. That is abuse. That is child abuse. And it creates hurt adults who hurt more children because they believe, with their twisted morality and their sick mockery of love that has been put upon them, they believe that they are doing right by those children and protecting them from the monster that they worship. So, Nasser, you're not telling us anything that we haven't heard a million times before, and I'm not saying that to put you down. I'm telling that to you so that you have a sense of community here, and you know that as much turmoil as you are experiencing right now, you are not alone in that turmoil. And more importantly, there are plenty of people all around the world that are going through the same thing. And more importantly, there are plenty of people who have gotten through it and are now leading happy, healthy, full, rich lives, free from the chains of religion. So you, my friend, I encourage you to call Recovering from Religion. I encourage you to keep calling into this show and shows like this and keep talking about this and keep thinking about this and think, if this God was real, would it punish you for using the brain that it equipped you with? And if so, fuck that dude. At the end of the day, you are more moral than this God. This God's sins far outweigh your own. And everything you're telling us right now tells me that you are just a fucking person. And I think you need to forgive yourself of that and find a way to just live your own life or your own way in your own terms and let go of this boogeyman that is hanging over your head.
Yep.
You're making good points there. And I do want to clarify that during those 3 days and nights, to say dramatically, that I was in not sleepless, I wasn't ever fearing for myself because I was still to the age, like in Islam, you do have to reach a certain age where, before that you die and you go to heaven straight, and you don't actually have your sins counted. So I was just like, damn, I should, I don't want other people to go. Maybe I can do something here, or maybe this isn't actually how it works. And I wasn't fearing for myself, basically. And I still don't really fear for myself right now, even though I'm past that age now. It's mostly because the same thing you said is like, well, God should be reasonable. And I'm not the only one that says God is reasonable. And this is something I did want to touch on that I didn't get to touch on much before, which is how other Muslims just seem to say, oh yeah, God's reasonable. For example, it's Ramadan right now, we're fasting, and it's like, yeah, God's reasonable if you're sick and you have diabetes and you need to drink juice. It's fine. You can break the fast to drink the juice as long as you don't do anything. God is reasonable. Is there a passage in the Quran or Sunnah or Hadith that says that? I don't think so. But people are just saying, well, of course, God is reasonable. I'm like, okay.
It is the same
at least
thing.
they're not doing Jehovah's Witness
same thing we see. It's the same thing we see on so many other religions. Like you look in the Bible, people are put to death for working on the Sabbath. There's a part in the Bible where a guy who isn't even like part of the religion, the Israelites are all together, and they say we can't work on the Sabbath, and they see a man from another land collecting sticks down the road, and they capture him and kill him because he was working on the Sabbath, despite the fact that he wasn't even part of the club that said not to do it. He didn't even know. For all he knew, random fuckers just jumped out of a bush and were like, fuck you, picking up sticks, and just started killing him. How confused was that man, right? And so, you are not supposed to work on the Sabbath at all. And there are Orthodox Jews who make appliances that cheat God, that like you can't turn on the stove because that's working on the Sabbath, but you can push this thing that pushes this other thing for you that turns on the stove because that's not technically working. And like just things like they literally, there's an industry for making products to get around these rules. And then when you don't want to buy into that industry, you just become a Christian and you say, well, work is subject. It means different things to different people. And and God wasn't really serious about that one. So if I work on a Sunday, it's fine because I still go to church sometimes. And God knows my heart. And like, well, that's all that's poetic part of the Bible. That's not the real part of the Bible. The same excuses you get everywhere else. So you're not, I said, like that's very common. Religious people do that all the time. And you talk about your 3 days of suffering after seeing this horrible video. I met a guy who was a Muslim, an ex-Muslim, who when he was a kid knew that there was a certain age of reason, like this is the age, before this age you can't go to hell or something like that. He tried to kill himself before he reached that age because he was convinced that he was going to go if he didn't. Yeah. It's crazy. And so like that is the abuse, that is the trauma that is passed on to these people. So I don't think you should feel bad, and I don't think you should feel scared. I think you should feel very, very angry for the fact that this exists. And I think you should use the trauma that you've experienced and the pain that you have suffered through as a catalyst to help more people and help more people free themselves from the chains of this belief, to help people shake off the shackles of shame and guilt and fear and become free themselves. I think you need to focus on that for you. And when you accomplish it, I think you need to be an activist as well, helping people in your community get the fuck out of this, because the only way that you can protect the next child from being put through the same torture that you've been put through is to help modernize and how do you say, socialize and make atheism more socially acceptable, proliferate.
Normalize, kind of absolutely.
Normalize. Normalize is the normal human word that I was looking for. That is why I do what I do, and that's what I think that you can do too. Unless you don't want to, you don't have to, but I'm just telling you, man, like the most painful parts of our life, I find, are the things that we can use to help the most people. And I think your story is powerful. And it's one that you can use to help free a lot of people once you can free yourself first. So, Nasser, I encourage you to take time to really dig into this and when you are able to recover from religion, then I think that you will be a valuable asset for people who are in the same position as you and are good people like you who need that freedom and deserve that freedom. And you could be the one to bring that to them.
Well, thank you for believing in me there. Though I think if I did become a sort of activist, I kind of already think I am going to be one, but that's more in terms of my LGBTQ friends, because I do have LGBTQ friends.
Hell
and
yeah.
I know what religion is doing to them. Not just Islam, by the way, because, you know, online friends and all that. But like,
Yep.
I think probably I'm going to be way more passionate about that. I'm passionate about that right now. It's just I want them to be happy and healthy and not
Well,
scared of
Yes.
their
We
family, because
fucking-
some of them
we
are not
need
even
that too.
Muslims.
We
Yep.
definitely need that too.
Well,
So don't
I highly appreciate
just take
what you
my
guys-
advice.
Oh,
That's
go
great. I was going to say, don't just take my advice. I think that's fantastic. We definitely need that
Absolutely.
too. I strongly encourage you to reach out to Recovering from Religion, Nasser, as well, and see if you can talk to some of the
Yes.
counselors
yeah,
there
I've
who
noted
have
that
been
down.
where you're at. Awesome. Nasser, I also encourage you to do one more thing, and that is go on to this show. After the show is over, you can scroll back and look at the live chat and just look at all the love you're getting in the live chat right now. You've got a ton of people in here
Yes.
who believe in you and who want to speak up for you and who think you're going to do great things and who are on your side and in your corner. Far more people than a dickhead brother and a violent mother. You've got dozens and dozens of people in here who are speaking up for you. So I think you should look into that as well.
Yes.
Well, thanks the audience in advance. I'm going to look at that and then I'm going to be like, thanks again, but you're not going to be able to hear me say that one. I appreciate it a lot. And thank you guys for being, thank you guys for being people that I can actually, go back and forth here. It's stimulating. I'm not just getting bored and being like, all right, well, that was nothing. I'm actually hearing it and was like, yeah, okay, we're having a conversation here, which doesn't feel like it should be something that I have to point out, but yeah, that is something that's like, hell yeah, I'm having a conversation. Holy shit, you know?
If we can be helpful and not boring, then we're better than most preachers.
Yes.
Sir, I appreciate you and your calls sincerely. I hope to hear from you again soon. Keep us updated on your journey, and I cannot wait for the day that you call in with an atheist tag.
Yes.
It's
coming.
Ooh, I could totally break your heart right now. In the future, I mean. All right. Yeah,
I believe in you, man. Take care, dude. Have an awesome rest of your day.
Thanks, Forrest. Thanks, Dimitri. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.
That was
Dimitri.
refreshing.
I heard it.
I get it. I get all of the things.
I'm not going to let it go either. Hey, really quick. Our producer reminded me that I have like a whole job. Today is the Sunday show after dark with me and Darante. Tomorrow we've got Skeptalk with John Gleason, the godless engineer. I don't know who he's having on.
Erica.
We've got Erica. All right. So John and Erica tomorrow. We've got Chewed Gum on the 25th with Alyssa and Eve. On Thursday, we've got the Hang Up. Nope, that's Wednesday. I'm dumb. On Wednesday, we've got the Hang Up with Matt and I don't know who. But then we've got Thursday is the Transatlantic Call-In Show with Josie and Luxander. And then we loop all the way back around to Sunday, where I will be taking the main show with me and John Gleason. So it'll be me and Godless Engineer for that. And then the Sunday show after dark will be Seth Andrews and Eric of Skeptics and Scoundrels. So you've got an amazing lineup for the rest of
That's going to be awesome.
So stay tuned for all of those things, y'all, because they're all shows. I'm not saying they're good shows. I don't know what they're going to be, but I'm saying they're shows, and you can tune into them. We've got some really, really cool stuff lined up. So definitely tune in for that, because it's going to be great. And now we have 4 calls left. We have, looks like 2 atheists, an agnostic, and a theist here, guessing it's Christian.
Sounds like a joke.
So it does, but I think I've talked to this person before. I don't want to start off as a jerk, but like I am 99% sure I've talked to this person before, and I am 99% sure it did not go well. So let's see what we've got here. We've got Ulrich from Mexico. Pronoun, it just says only he, so I can't say him, I guess. But he is calling to say that Noah's Ark was found Ulrich, you're on the line with Forrest and Darante. How are you doing?
Hello. Yes, I want to continue my last call. Yeah, we talked before about the same topic, Noah's Ark. And then after you told me why Noah's Ark is not possible, I researched a little on the internet, and they have found Noah's Ark, they say, close to Mount Ararat. There is
in Turkey?
There are rocks that are in the exact shape of a boat.
Right, yeah, the one the one in Turkey, right?
Right.
Yeah, the one where they say they found Noah's Ark. What is your
explanation for that?
Yes, that's the place where they say they found Noah's Ark about 50 times. Every year or so, they say they find Noah's Ark, and it happens to be there. And sometimes it's because they find it looks exactly like a boat, and sometimes they claim to find wood there, and sometimes they do like surface like ultrasound stuff to like look underneath the things, and over and over and over and over and over and over and over, it's bullshit. They keep saying that's Noah's Ark, and it keeps not being Noah's Ark. It is just a particular, I think it's a limestone formation or something like that. It's a very natural and expected formation of rock that happens to look like a boat or a vagina. But nobody's talking about this being the mighty puss of Gaia. It is always Noah's Ark because that's the dominant religious story. And so, like, it's just you can. It is a better story. So, Ulrich, what I would encourage you to do is go to like look up that site, whatever blog you found that talks about this is where they found Noah's Ark. Find the name of that site and put it into Google, and just scroll back and see all the different articles saying that that's Noah's Ark, going back like decades, and how every single one of them has a different claim about it. And then find out why each of those claims has been debunked and is proven not to be real. It's just a weird rock formation that looks vaguely boatish, and it is not nearly big enough to be Noah's Ark.
However, they say that's the exact site that the Bible says.
Yeah, somebody does, and then other creationists don't. So like, it's whatever. Also, the Bible measures it in cubits, which is not a like standardized measurement. So like, you can kind of adjust that very easily by a lot to make it sound like whatever it needs to be. The point is, it's just a rock formation. There's no wood present there. There's no animal remains present there. There is absolutely no evidence that there was a 500-year-old man riddled with STIs that landed a boat in that area. It's just a vagina-shaped rock formation. And every other year, somebody says it's Noah's Ark, and then they go nowhere with it because it isn't. Like I said, man, if you really want to, if you want to hear why I don't believe this, you don't have to take my word for it. Look up the name of that site, and you will find 50 different articles of people claiming that it's Noah's Ark over the course of several years, and they have all been debunked. So the reason why I don't believe whichever article you found, because I don't know which one it is the same reason I don't believe any of the other ones either.
Drupinar is what the site is called.
I'm sorry, you're breaking up. Could you say it again?
Drupinar. I don't know.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's Drupinar. Yeah, so like here, what I'm going to do is here's it near Mount Ararat, and Drupinar. There we go. The Drupinar site in Mark Tenderek. So I'm just going to like grab Drupinar site, and I'm going to type it into Google with Noah. And here I've got, this is from IsraelHayom.com from 2021. Here is Noah's Ark Scans.com has one of it. Here's the New York Post saying new evidence supports Noah's Ark. That's from 2025. That's from the New York Post. Here's the Jerusalem Post. Possible discovery of Noah's Ark in Turkey from 2024. Here's from 2023. Has Noah's Ark been found from the Ark Encounter, which is the big Answers in Genesis website. And so here, this one I think is really important is Answers in Genesis is a grifting, lying, bullshit pseudoscience creationist evangelist organization here in the USA. And they have a massive fucking Ark museum that they talk about Noah's Ark, and they push this story to get people to buy into their bullshit. And so these guys have more reason than anybody in this country. Massive financial incentive to tell people that Noah's Ark is real and they found it. And here is this story. Has Noah's Ark been found from 2023 about this very site? And they say that this was found in 1908. At least this is a direct quote. At least a dozen expeditions have explored this gorge, and since then, to date, none of these adventures have found any remains of Noah's Ark. So, like, the people who have the most reason in this country to say Noah's Ark is real, they have a multi-million-dollar business telling people that Noah's Ark is real. They are saying that the dozens and dozens of people that have gone here to explore this have come up with bullshit and nothing. So, like, I don't know what to tell you, man. It has not been found, nor could it be found, because it isn't fucking real. And this is just one place that has been fooling creationists for apparently about 100 years now.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for the explanation. Okay.
No worries.
Oh.
Yeah. While I have you here, can I ask you? Oh, he hung up.
That was thorough.
Well, thanks for the explanation. Welp. Right.
I think that means he got it. I think that means he got it. I think that's a win for us.
Hopefully so. Hopefully so. Maybe we made a difference today. Man. I was gonna say we made a difference for him, but I can't call him because his pronoun is only he, whatever that means.
He's he that shall not be named. He's he that remains.
He that shall not be himmed.
Right?
So fucking weird. All right, so we've got 3 left. Let's talk to 7, pronoun she, her, calling in from ornery rhinoceroses, who is an agnostic, who is an anti-theist when it comes to the Christian God, but thinks that it's possible for another entity to exist. 7, you were on the line with Forrest and Darante. How are you doing today?
Hi, 7.
I'm good. Hey, Forrest. Hey, Darante.
Hey, 7 is also one of my kind and generous patrons on Patreon, by the way. So thank you, 7, for being so awesome, being so supportive.
Yeah. Yes, I'll be back at it here shortly, but yeah. So I'm anti-theist when it comes to the Christian God, the Abrahamic God. I think logically you can just discount that God and every religion that harbors it. That one's not a contextual thing for me, but when it comes to a God belief, I guess, I specifically don't have belief. I try to stay away from the idea that this is something that I think without evidence. So I think thought without evidence or with evidence is just data collection and and logical reasoning. But with agnostic, my agnosticism comes from the idea that there could be a God, this possibility. And it's not something I worship, it's not something I believe in, it's just the idea that there's a possibility there. And my questions regard, and of course you might be perfectly capable of helping me out here, but the idea of collective consciousness between the animal kingdom, things like bonobos learning how to clean their food on roughly the same day, or maybe even the same day, but across the world, things like that. There's also another example from, I forgot that lady that went in and lived with the gorillas forever, Goodall or something like that. But
Jane Goodall?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. I think that there was an incident where she recorded that one of the gorillas started using a stick to get ants out of an anthill, or and another individual across the world was studying gorillas as well and recorded the same thing happening on the same day. And it wasn't until years later when they finally realized, hey, these happened on the same day. So this idea that collective consciousness is a possibility in particular is something that always stuck with me, and I'll bring it all together, and then I really want your input on here. But I read this book as I was deconstructing. It was a short story by Andy Weir called The Egg, and it was later adapted by Kortzak to a little animated thing that I quite enjoyed as well. But the short story right in college for me really helped me deconstruct in a way that still allowed me to think positively about there being some form of God belief. And it's this idea that the consciousness that I embed isn't going to change, but the consciousness that you have is something that collectively we share together, and that God, quote unquote, is this collective consciousness, this idea. And I personally adapt it towards all living things, and I know that makes it exponentially, if not even more so, complicated, but I think Andy Weir only subscribed that to humans, and I just don't think that's accurate from my idea of what it could potentially be. But so a bunch of questions there, but mostly I was wondering what your thought process is with any of that, especially if I have any of my information wrong.
Yeah, so one thing is this is a tiny detail, but they were chimpanzees, not gorillas. The reason why it's actually kind of maybe important to this is that that was new research at the time, but it was the forefront of thought in this area. So we didn't know at that time that chimpanzees use tools, and more than that they made the tools that they use, because they don't just fish for the termites with the stick. They will select the best stick and whittle it and fashion it to make it the perfect stick for termite fishing. And they will teach their children how to do that. So you see generational knowledge as well. They'll have their kid picking a stick and they're no, that one's too bendy. Get a different one, and they show them how to pull the leaves off just right. And that's what Jane Goodall was observing. And she famously observed them doing these things, using tools these ways. And at that time, we defined humans as tool makers. And so that was the way was man, the tool maker, always only man, because, men are the archetype of whatever, but man, the tool maker is how we defined humans. And Jane Goodall brought this back to Leakey, who was the leading primatologist at the time. And Leakey famously said, well, we either need to redefine the word man, redefine the word tool, or accept chimpanzees as humans. Those are our options. And we ended up redefining the word man because it was the one that made the most sense, right? So now what does this go to do with what you're saying? Well, some other scientist was also seeing this happen at the same time. That's because this was the leading primatological research that was going on at the time, was learning about chimpanzee society, doing ethological studies on chimpanzee behavior was the thing that was going on at that time. So I think it's kind of if you talk about Darwin was publishing his work on natural selection at the exact same time that Mendel was publishing his work on heredity. And so if you look at those two at the same time, you have modern synthesis of neo-Darwinian theory that explains much of what we know about evolution at this time. How wonderful. These two people happen to work at the same time. Is that a reason to say that they had a collective consciousness? Or is it say that was the interesting thing that was happening at that moment, and two scientists happened to be working on it in the world? Yeah. And so when I hear things like that, I know there are coincidences out there, and I know it sounds like a cop-out to write things off as coincidence. But when you really sit down with it and say, okay, well, two people who were both interested in the same thing both saw the same thing, that doesn't even sound like a coincidence to me. That sounds like a given. And when you expand that to whatever else, if 8 billion people in the world and plenty more millions of animal species in the world, all with a common ancestor, all with a lot of shared behaviors, having what appears to be some sort of similarity in consciousness and perception, in behavior, in culture, whatever, again, it sounds less and less and less like a coincidence and more and more like an inevitability to me. And I don't think that's a reason to think in any kind of a supernatural aspect to that. I think it just points more to humans being humans and animals being animals. But maybe I missed something. I don't know if that answers your question exactly, or if I missed something that you said.
A little bit. I mean, have you heard about the bonobos recently?
I've heard about them, but I don't know what recent thing. No, that would be an Erica question.
Oh, sure, fair. Yeah. I look into it because I could be wrong. Like sources are sources, but a similar aspect happened with cleaning their food between bonobos from different places in the world. But when you were talking about Darwinian and Himmel, is it or Himmel?
It's Darwin and Mendel. Gregor Mendel.
That reminded me this idea of like a naturalistic explanation of like the environment dictating the conditions, and then therefore dictating what individuals end up doing in that environment. There were individuals in Australia that were making the airplane with around the same time, if not the same time, as the Wright brothers. And that makes sense, because if you give a group of individuals, or life forms in this case, X amount of criteria in front of them, they're going to do X amount of things with that. And in this case, they had a problem, they both wanted to solve it, and they found very specific naturalistic ways of doing so. But I'm not afraid, and not like against the idea of saying that these are naturalistic examples, and or even using that as the mechanism involved in creating what those conditions are, or I guess the outcomes. But the idea that consciousness in general is something that we are like embedded with, this idea that I can't just switch to somebody else's consciousness, or the idea that like if we were to switch consciousnesses, what's the plural of consciousness, at the same moment, what would that feel like? Like if we didn't have any of our previous memories or anything like that, and I was just you immediately and you were just me, there wouldn't be a difference in action. There wouldn't be. It could have happened right now and we wouldn't have been able to tell the difference, because I would continue to act the way I do and you would continue to act the way you do. And I know this kind of gives like some form of like meta thing to it. And I'm really trying to avoid that, because I don't think that's necessarily like a requirement of things, but this idea that consciousness is useful and for something has always kind of stuck with me. And this could be my religion, the upbringing that I've deconstructed from, and all that kind of stuff. But especially that story, this idea that we are each other, like always kept with me. It not prevents me, but it gives me credence into the allowability of not wanting others to suffer, no matter what they do, because maybe not because at some point I'll live through their existence, but because they're human and they're experiencing things in their own manner and in their own way, and justifiably had no option but to exist at that moment. And I think that's a good thing, even if there isn't a God behind it. If there's a collective like portion to that, I've always enjoyed that possibility.
Yeah. What it sounded like to me, and it's just me, I don't know, maybe a misunderstanding or whatever like it, but just from my perspective, it sounds like you have a high degree of social conscience. And knowing what I know about you, I think that's probably true. And you have a religious upbringing that is giving you a different perspective of that kind of just generosity, kindness, compassion, social awareness that you should be proud of as an accomplishment and a good quality of yourself. And because of the way you were brought up, you were framing it now in this, for lack of a better word, kind of this woo-woo way. You know what I mean? And I think you're using like there's a million. I quickly looked up like just other examples of simultaneous invention. I know that isn't the point of the call, but like there's a million one really cool examples of things like huge technological advances and like discoveries that were made like on different parts of the world simultaneously. And to me, again, that just speaks to people who are interested in something being interested in something. The microchip was invented twice within the same year. Jack Kilby and Robert Noyce both invented the microchip at the same time, back to back. A scientist in Japan and a scientist in Canada both proved that neutrinos had mass at the same time. Didn't know each other, did it independently. They shared in the Nobel Prize in physics because they both discovered this shit at the same time, independently of one another, right? I should have talked about Alfred Russel Wallace, who almost was credited with the discovery of the theory of evolution if Darwin hadn't published his book in order to snub that guy and get out in front of him. Like, so like there's there's two of these things. I've got these two guys who developed the jet engine, one in England, one in Germany. I've got these two people who discovered chromosomes. I've got these two people who discovered polycarbonate glass and like all these, and all that tells me is that these two people are fucking awesome and smart and seeing the same data, and that the truth is out there ready for them to find it. And you, with your this particular lens that you were accustomed to looking for, of saying, well, everything has a meaning. I'm putting words in your mouth here on purpose. Of everything has a meaning and everything is connected and there's a reason for this, and like there's some sort of guiding force, even if it isn't the God that I like. I think you're used to having that heuristic. And because of that, you are not giving yourself the credit that you deserve for being a damn good person. And you are instead looking for some sort of a supernatural connection that will give you meaning as opposed to purpose. Does that make sense?
Yes, but it's less of a entity and more of a combination of all of us. It's this idea that we as and you're right, this social awareness, or I don't like the idea of harming others. It hurts. But and I agree with you. When it comes to humans in particular, the environment that we created for individuals to create things is evident and showcases a lot of different advancements that are simultaneous in multiple different places. I mean, pyramids are a similar kind of thing when it comes to humans. The animal kingdom is where it became more complicated for me to really get behind. And I understand that like living things are living things, and they have similar environments and have similar predispositions to create advancement. But like bonobos and the chimpanzees, like you were talking about, those in particular always stuck with me. And I think it was recently that this bonobos thing happened, and that was really the reminder, I guess, of this whole idea that less that it's a thing, but that we're connected. And I think that's evident that we're connected. Just how we're connected is really the part that, like, I'm choosing to think that what I do to you, for example, is important, and that it's really doing something to collectively me as well, and that this collection should be labeled.
I want to say we are connected in that we live in the same world where the same rules of microbiology apply. And therefore, washing your food is a good, safe, healthy thing to do. Well, provides positive selection pressure for social and behavioral evolution, regardless of your religion, regardless of your culture, regardless of whatever. There's an ancient Jewish tradition of ceremonially washing your hands, like pouring water 3 times over your hands before you have a meal. That's a good tradition. It doesn't matter if it's a Jewish tradition or not. You are cleaning the shit off your hands before you use your hands to put food in your mouth. That's a good idea. It doesn't matter if these bonobos are washing their food in filthy river water. It's better than eating the dirt off the ground, right? And so, like that, I think that is a connection. It's a connection of evolution. It's a connection of selection pressure. It's a connection of microbiology. It's a connection of reality. Yeah. It's not a connection of shared consciousness. And so that, to me, I think it's just a matter of framework that I see. And then I see the same thing if I look to other things like, raccoons or hamsters or rats or like other apes, like all sorts of things. that do this kind of like washing behavior and cleaning behavior and washing themselves, washing food, washing hands, washing all this stuff, that works because it works. And that speaks to me about the nature of microbiology more than it does about the nature of like some ideological world. So what I hear you're saying is a lot of the same kind of things that people who call in and talk about like idealism as opposed to materialism call in about. And I would just warn you away from falling into that trap, because I do think that I think you are very perceptive, and I think you're hitting a lot of like good notes here. I just would encourage you to just, think about it from all the different angles you possibly can and try to figure out which one is the most naturalistic and the most mechanistic. And maybe that's not the right one necessarily, but I would say it is more likely to be the right one. And like, just kind of just weigh those options. You know what I mean?
That's fair. I do have to ask one quick question before we go, though.
Yeah.
We were talking about washing food. So do you wash your chicken before you cook it?
I choose not to answer that. I know there is no need to, because chicken is actually like processed quite safely. I do like to rinse it off, because I feel like just like the goo in the package, which I know is fine.
Oh yeah.
But the package goo is just kind of sitting on the outermost layer, and the outermost layer is the most exposed to any kind of airborne pathogen and the most likely to grow bacteria. And so I just rinse off the goo. But honestly, if you genuinely like thoroughly wash your chicken, you're more at risk of splashing salmonella around your kitchen. So there's no reason to do it. But like a little goo rinse, I don't see a problem with. But I don't thoroughly scrub it with like soap and vinegar and all the shit that people used to do. I don't do any of that.
Oh man, that's hilarious.
That was a culture shock for me when I learned about that. But anyways, sorry. I agree with what you're saying. Like I said earlier, this isn't really something I believe in. I don't have beliefs like that. It's something that stuck with me and was beneficial from an idea that if I have to think something that isn't based in data, that this would be the best case scenario for everyone. And I think that's better than every religion out there.
Yeah. Well, the good news is you don't have to believe something that's not based in data, because we do have sociology and social science that does support a lot of these ideologies of that it is wise to treat other people kind and to do what's in the best interest of the group. And so, that's the thing. You don't have to navigate to something that isn't true in absence of the data. And many times the data is there. And that's one of the things that I always encourage people of. The moment you realize that something is a possibility, right? And that's what I love. You said, this idea, it's a possibility. Well, what you're admitting when you do that is that there are also several other possibilities. And so the question has to be then, why am I attaching myself to this possibility over all the other ones? And one of the things that became very paramount for me in my deconstruction is I absolutely refuse to attach myself to anything without reason. Like I don't need to believe in a collective consciousness to do better by other people. I don't need to believe in a higher power to believe that I can be nice to people. I understand that the fact, kind of like Forrest said, the fact that we share this environment, we share this planet, we work on it together, we're all responding to the world that we live in. It's no shocker to me when someone is having a similar experience to me, because we're in this, we are all evolutionary consequences, right? But no, like I love the way that this conversation has kind of unfolded, because I love your approach to this. And I, as a fiction author, I love possibilities, period. Like speculation is beautiful to me. There's so many stories in that. I just take pause when people feel the need to take comfort in the speculation, because in many cases it's not necessary. The data that we do have, we have so much data that none of us have truly went through all of it to be able to say that I've been through it all and I'm not satisfied with the answer. And so in most cases, the thing that it is that we haven't figured out yet, somebody has that data somewhere. And so I'm excited that you're on that pursuit.
Absolutely.
Oh, awesome.
Also, Seven, I want to let you know that like I have seen you many times because you were in like my VIP live streams and stuff like that. But the one time we actually met in person was at Dragon Con, and you were dressed as some sort of wizard bitch with the big hat. And that is the only way that I can. That is the only way that I can picture you now. And in my head, that is how we've been having this conversation. So just I want you to know that.
Oh, that makes it even more enjoyable for me. Yes.
Oh, Seven's great. Seven has been a supporter of mine for a long time. She's a super nice person. So but that's all that's in my head at this moment. It's just you in that purple thing with the giant hat and everything. Like, yeah, that's who I'm talking to up here.
Oh man.
Yeah, that was super fun. That was the highlight of my year last year. So anyway, I'll let you guys go. Thank you.
Talk to you later,
You guys are amazing.
Thank you, Seven.
And I'll talk to you soon.
Take care, Seven. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. We got 2 callers left. Both of them are atheists. We will go with, let's talk to Jonah first. Jonah's been waiting the longest. Jonah's calling in from Kicking Sacks, who says that atheism offers no hope. Jonah, you're on the line with Forrest and Darante. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. And just to start off, I mean, you get hope at the start of the post. Like your talk about the science thing was pretty awesome. I'm not gonna lie. So that was pretty hopeful. I guess I know I've called and talked to you before a little bit about nihilism, and that's now listening to everybody talk, and I don't really feel like I need to talk about that anymore. So it was more like I feel like the fish out of Finding Nemo, and you kind of already directed an answer to this. Is I'm 5 years. I'm deconstructed as well. You know, an atheist. And I found myself in the ocean, and I'm like, so now what? You know, so at the end of Finding Nemo, he's like, they roll out, they get in the bags, they roll out into the ocean. He's like, so now what? And so, yeah, I guess the finding of hope is what do I do after I've deconstructed? How do I find community or that kind of thing? And that's kind of what I wanted to talk about.
Ooh.
All right. Yeah.
Okay.
Darante, do you want to start? You probably have a better answer to this than I do.
Yeah.
Mine would just be my own philosophy.
Yeah. Nope. I have a few thoughts on this. Some of it is just kind of triggered just by the word usage, which I do like this kind of stuff. This is kind of my jam, as the young kids say. But the first thing is, you know, a lot of times when it comes to things like hope, and I mentioned at the beginning of this show that I'm not even comfortable using the word hope a lot of times. I'm like, oh, what the fuck is that? You know what I'm saying? So when it comes to finding hope, you know, a lot of times I find it better to define hope than to find hope. And so in other words, and I don't mean just defining of just let's get a working definition. I mean, no, like what does that mean for you? You know what I'm saying? Someone once asked me, like, does my job make me happy? And I had to laugh. And I said, no, I don't go to work to be happy. That's not what we signed the contract for. That's not what I expect them for. Like, no, they pay me. That's what I go there for. So when I, you know, think about like, does atheism give me hope? No, it doesn't. Now, my journey into atheism, I pulled a lot of hope out of that because I've defined what to do with my life after that. Now, I think kind of like you, Jonah, I struggle with this word hope itself because so many times, like purpose, when we think of hope and we think of purpose, we think of things that have already been pre-described, predefined for us, that have been, you know, established. And for me, the freedom that my atheism gave me, and I know that atheist is not a monolith, but the freedom that my atheism gave me was the ability to look at my life as is and make decisions based off of whatever that is. And so while there are times that I don't necessarily have hope, but I'll still keep doing what I need to do because I want to survive. You know what I'm saying? And so no, I kind of get that. Now, how do you find community after this? It's the same type of thing, right? So, you know, you have to define hope. Well, you need to define what community means to you. Like, what do you mean when you say community? Because there is some out here and there's some more. But the reason why I ask you to define this is because that's going to let you know what you're willing to do. Because right now, you're not alone, Jonah. Like right now, 80% of the people I talk to in this space, that is their heart's cry. We need community. The problem is, Jonah, is that less than 5% of the people I talk to are interested in building community. That's where the disconnect is coming in, you know? So the thing is, we have a lot of people that want to find it. What we need are some people who are willing to fuck around and find out, to like figure out like, hey, I'm willing to put myself out here on the line, out on the line and embarrass myself and figure out how to make this work. And it doesn't have to look like anybody else's, which is the one thing I encourage people to do. If it's nothing more than just finding a few like-minded people and going bowling or going to Applebee's, you know, and get those half-off appetizers. I don't know. You start somewhere, you know, because community isn't just this identity that we give ourselves. Community is that collective effervescence that we have just by working together, you know. And so it's just finding more opportunities to be with people. It's not rocket science. It just feels like it sometimes because we've become so individualistic. But I don't want to make it sound easy. It's going to require some work. If we had a good 100 people out here who was just like, no, I'm out here and I'm building community somewhere, then I'd just be like, go here, go here, go here, which there is Sunday Assembly. There is Oasis. They have Houston Oasis, Orlando Oasis. There is Bridge City, which is the organization that I'm building. So there are options and they're all beautiful. But what's really needed right now, Jonah, is people like you who would either start doing it where you are, or to hell, just put out there like, hey, I don't want to help build one, but if there's someone who's building one, I'll be a part of it. Because there's likely someone out there who say, I would love to start something in my community, but I don't know if there are people interested. And so, no, what you're pointing out is valid. It's a cry in this community right now. Like it's not lost on us at all. But what we really need is we need more people who are going to respond to that, you know, and start saying, hey, I'm willing to either put my money where my mouth is, my time where my mouth is, my house where my mouth is, whatever I got to do, because we just got to create the space. And I will tell you, Jonah, that is one of the things that I am committed to, is making sure that we can see an influx of local communities that house more secular thought, humanistic thought, and critical thinking.
You were talking about different oases. On the 6th of April, Sunday, April 6th, I will be speaking at the Kansas City Oasis. So if you're there in Kansas, you're not too far away from Kansas City Oasis, which is, I guess, is Kansas City, Missouri. But I just put it there in the chat there for the Facebook, or you can go to valkailabs.com, and there I've got my whole events list. So I'll be. Awesome. That's the thing, a community you might be able to get a part of if you like.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess as the secondary question, so I was like, as building community, as you mentioned properly, I was like, so what would that somewhat look like? Like I've listened to Seth Andrews at some of his live events where he, you know, I enjoy it where you bash the fuck out of Christianity. Of course, I mean that's fine. But I'll like what you know, what else are we going to do after that? Like, you know, so what are the topics? What are the dimensions? What happens afterwards? I guess.
Oh, great question. You don't get to pick that in advance. That's the tricky thing about community. If you do that, it's not a community, it's a dictatorship. You've already decided before anybody joined what everybody is going to do. And that's not how you build community. And that's what's scary, right? That's the scary part, because you want to go in knowing exactly what everybody should be doing, when they should be doing. And it's like, but you don't even have their input yet. And so you start at just meeting together, being committed to do that. And you find out what's next in those conversations, because it's going to be different from group to group. There are going to be some groups who want time making music. There are going to be some groups who want to spend their time helping the poor and the disenfranchised. There are going to be some groups who want to focus on just hobbyist stuff like going hiking or going bowling. And so that's why you can determine in advance what type of group you want to be a part of. And again, that's the hard work, is There's nobody out here who can tell you what your community should look like, because there's nobody out here who can tell you what you should want. So you have to determine what you want in a community and find other people who want similar things to help make that a reality. Like for me, what I want in a community is conversations that matter and music that keeps me uplifted, because I come from the church and then I like that. I still have an affinity for that. So I want music, I want conversations, and then I want us working together collectively to use our money to help the community that we live in so we can show people the work that we do. Those are some things that I would want in a local community. And so when I'm talking to people, that's what we're going to build around. So it does take that footwork of having those conversations and actually figuring out, like, what do I want to do? Because there is no one size fits all. Your secular community could be going fishing every Saturday, and that works. And that's the freedom we have. But damn, that freedom is scary, isn't it?
Yeah. No, that's great. And yeah, that's kind of what I was looking for. So I might have to try a couple, because again, I've been hermited in my house and listening to y'all, and again, I enjoy the community that y'all provide, especially from the callers, and even listening to you as your videos. I mean, I know it's there's a word for it. I forgot, where you live vicariously. You act like you've met the person, but you've never met them.
Right, the parasocial relationship.
There you go.
Yeah.
But yeah, the psychology is just of hope. I try to be a hopeful person. I like to be positive. I like to be someone who's happy to be around and things like that. So I've been dealing with, and I know you guys aren't psychologists, but it's been dealing with that hopelessness in myself, and trying to create that hope. So we'll definitely try to look into it. I saw the one in Wichita, which is where I live in Kansas. I'll look into it, see what I can do.
All right. Sounds good. Well, thank you so much, Jonah. I appreciate you waiting so long and calling in and talking to us. It's been a good conversation. Hope to talk to you again sometime.
Yes.
Absolutely.
This was great.
Yep.
See you later. Remember, y'all, if you take nothing else away from this show, if you're lacking hope and you're needing community, don't kill yourself. Applebee's has half-off appetizers. That was the lesson that I took from this. That's the most important lesson from the show. Don't kill yourself. Applebee's has half-off appetizers. That'll save you. We've got one caller left, and it is Emily, pronoun she or they, who's been waiting for 2.5 hours. Emily is an atheist who wants to know, how do we help people believe in science? This is my bread and butter, and I want to talk about it. Emily, you were on the line with Forrest and Darante. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you, Forrest? How are you, Darante?
Hello. Doing great, man. Thank you.
Good. Actually, last time I called you as a theist, so
all right.
Changes.
Hey. Yeah.
All right. Look at there.
Makes my heart swell, but in a good way.
The humans are rejoicing on earth. Look at there.
So I guess my main question that I was asking is how do you, maybe not convince isn't the right word, but like help guide people to want to believe in science when like their views are like just polarly opposite of it? Because like I'm a math and science educator, and I do a good job of like guiding kids through like the different processes of discovering things. But I feel like with adults who, like, I'm thinking specifically of like my parents and stuff, who they are so ingrained in a certain thought process that they're not willing necessarily to step out of that. I'm wondering how you can kind of like slowly coax them in that direction.
Yeah. So if it's okay, if I can jump right in, my big thing is that, like, if you just, in my experience, if you just try to just tell people what science is and just like give them the truth, they will lock down more and more and more into their beliefs, and they will find reasons to not believe you. And so, like, you've got to find a way to make it make sense to them, because you can make science make sense, but can you make it make sense to somebody, if that makes any sense? You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah.
And the ways that I like to do that, number one, is I like to give them simple, even if they're a little oversimplified, just help them get the concept, like 3 to 5 concepts that we can break down a logical progression as to why we have a good idea that this thing works. So at least we know we're talking about the same thing. So say, for example, we talk about evolution, right? I get comments all the time from people who say, like, well, you believe that 2 rocks smashed together in space and that made the Earth, and then monkeys crawled out of mud and then they fucked and made a human, and that's where you come. It's like, okay, you are so far off base that it's going to take me 5 hours to explain to you what reality is before I start talking about a reason why you should believe it, right? So there's no reason for me to try to dig into this in a way that I'm actually going to teach you all the things you're wrong about. If we're going to talk about evolution, I'm going to start by giving you the definition of it as any change in the heritable characteristics of a population over the course of multiple generations. I'm going to start by explaining that there's a difference between evolution and abiogenesis and the Big Bang and the formation of the Earth and all these other things. We're just talking about evolution. So let me give you 3 to 5 simple things that you can understand evolution. 3 things. We understand that DNA exists and it's heritable, right? Good. We got that locked down. We do agree that genes come in different flavors called alleles, right? We can understand that alleles are different and there's different types of alleles that are the same gene doing different types of things. We can lock that in. We got that. And we can understand that logically, reasonably, different alleles are better suited for life in different environments. And if you can agree with that, which makes total sense, then the next logical step is natural selection, right? If we're passing down genes from one generation to the next, and there's different flavors of these genes called alleles, and some alleles are better than others, then logically speaking, some alleles are going to become more prevalent, while some of them are going to be filtered out. That is natural selection. We've got it in the bag, right? And so we don't now understand everything about evolution. We certainly haven't covered where life comes from, where the Earth comes from. We haven't covered all the different parts of evolution, different mechanisms of evolution. We haven't gotten to a point where I can convince you that humans evolved from apes and all these other things. But at least we can have a conversation now about what we're actually talking about without getting off base. Yeah. The second thing that I would give somebody is connections, connecting to other parts of their lives to make it make sense in a way that they can see. Evolution works, and we can see that because of the way that medicine works. If we don't have evolution, we don't understand the evolutionary development of organs. We don't understand where different parts of our body come from and how they develop and how they work. And even if you want to reject that, we don't understand the evolution of pathogens. Without evolution, we don't have good antibiotics. We don't have good vaccines. Right? So we need evolution to make medicine work. We need evolution to make agriculture work. Artificial selection, selecting for traits that we like the exact same way that nature selects for traits that help something survive and reproduce. We force survival and reproduction with traits that would not survive in the wild, but that create crops and animals, livestock that are more nutritious and bigger and tastier and hardier, and that leads to literally billions of lives being saved around the world, as we were able to feed people in ways that we normally wouldn't be able to feed them through genetically engineered and artificially selected crops. Forced evolution that works. The fossil fuel industry is entirely reliant on us living on an old Earth with long dead organic matter from the Carboniferous period. If you have a natural gas stove, if you have a furnace in your house, if you drive a car, you are relying on this study of evolution. And that is why fossil fuel companies use radiometric dating to know where to dig for oil. And it makes these multi-billion-dollar multinational industries work. So giving those connections to different parts of their lives allows them then to have an actual handle on this. It's not just a theory. It's not just some ethereal thing in a textbook that some scientist wants me to know. It is actually having a meaningful impact on my life. And that brings me to the third thing, is make it matter. Give them a reason to believe that hits the ethos, the pathos, and the logos. Give them a meaning to it. The coolest thing about evolution, in my opinion, is the relationship of all living things. The fact that all life on Earth shares a common ancestor and is connected in one family tree. That means that no matter where you go on this planet, you are at a family reunion. And I'm not just talking about the other humans around you. I'm talking about dogs. I'm talking about trees. I'm talking about grass. I'm talking about snails. I'm talking about mushrooms. I'm talking about the bacteria on your shoe. All of these things are related to you, and all of them have something to teach you about themselves, about yourself, and about the world around you as well. And when you think about science in that way, I feel so much bigger than I really am as I establish these connections that go back throughout time and space. I feel so much smaller than I really am when I think about the vastness of the time scale of our species, let alone all species. I think that life has no meaning because I think about how species come and go in the blink of an eye and how anything can die for any reason. And sometimes evolution is driven by random chance. And I feel like I have immense purpose when I think about an immense meaning in my life, because I think about the fact that by my very existence, I am a shaper in the story of humankind, and that my community relies on me the same way that I rely on them, whether I like it or not. And so I have all of these immense feelings, these emotions, this wonder, this joy, this reverence, this meaning, this purpose that I can derive from my understanding of evolution and the worldview that comes along with that. And that doesn't make it a religion, it just makes you informed. And so those are the three things. That's the way that I would teach something to somebody who doesn't believe it. That's the way that I like to break through these kind of ideological, cultural, religious, political barriers, is break something down into like 3 to 5 easy things that we can wrap our heads around. Doesn't have to be too detailed, but give us the summary, then build connections to other sciences, other parts of life, other things that they can actually see the results, and then fucking make it matter, and don't leave them hanging, and don't let them feel abandoned by trying to supplant their spirituality with reality. Give them something that they can actually be happy about. That's my method. That's what I like to do.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, I guess the big hang up for a lot of people is that last part.
It's hard.
Why does it matter? Because I feel like a lot of people, my parents included, are very much like, if evolution is true, then there is no point to it, and I feel like a lot of times they think it's so conflicting with their current beliefs that they just can't make it matter to them. So I feel like that's the hardest part. But I feel like if I can get that last point, that's probably going to be what hits at home.
It would help a lot. And the thing is, a lot of people would mistake my nihilistic and mechanistic view of the universe as something very cold and hopeless and helpless and all these things. And it's all about framing. You know what I mean? You can say life has no meaning and make it be the saddest thing you've ever said, or you can say life has no meaning and have it be the most freeing thing you've ever said and the most wonderful thing. And that's how I see it. I would take the same thing that I guarantee would scare the hell out of your parents and make them feel depressed and hopeless and miserable and turned off. And I can tell them, no. This is the reason for joy, because fucking nobody tells me what I have to be. I am not born on purpose. I am not born with a plan or a goal. I have the freedom to decide who I'm going to be, to make my own mistakes, to choose my own adventure. And that gives me immense joy. And so, like, finding that framework, it might be better than trying to offer them meaning. Helping to reframe the meaning that is there is also just as important sometimes. Darante, you look like you were about to say something cool.
Yeah, because like you got my mind going a little bit. And so I did want to just kind of add to that, and it really just goes hand in hand, is that 3 things that I find important when it comes to getting people really interested in science and math, especially the hard sciences, is the first one is curiosity, and find a way to provoke and reward that curiosity. And the challenge that comes there is that means you have to separate the lesson from your agenda. So like when you're first stepping in, the goal isn't to get them to understand this scientific fact. The goal is to get them to get them excited about scientific thinking, right? And so what you want to do is find a way to provoke their curiosity. Find something that may not be related to the specific agenda you have, but that would just provoke that curiosity and give you a moment to reward their interest in that. And then the second thing in that would be also the capacity issue, because I find that most people don't dislike science. they already feel like they're at a disadvantage from understanding it. And when people feel like they're at a disadvantage from understanding something, they feel that they can be easily manipulated. So it's easy to attach yourself to the ideology. Well, the scientists are lying because I don't understand this. And so one thing that I find that becomes really helpful for people is help them attach to their capacity to understand the science. And many times, again, that means separating from the personal agenda, finding something that they can understand. So tackling something big may not be the best first step, but finding something scientifically that they can understand just to help them see you have this muscle, you have this micro win. This is not beyond your capacity to interrogate. This is not beyond your capacity to understand. And many times, just with that little bit, they'll end up following that rabbit trail themselves, because that's what we do. It's like, that's why everybody's gamifying every fucking thing right now, because the moment we get that little micro win, that dopamine rush hits in and it's like, oh, I want to do it again. And understanding science works in the same way. And that last thing, which I think is the thing that Forrest did an excellent job of driving home, is there's a safety issue. We did a conversation series on my channel a few months ago, last year, where we dealt with the idea of the way people change their minds. And in most cases, people change their minds on a paradigm of safety. It is either I change my mind because I feel safe with this new idea, or I change my mind because I don't feel safe with this previous idea. Like for me, I don't want to jump out of a building. I'd never, ever want to jump out of a building unless you change my situation of safety, which means if I'm in a building and that building is on fire, then all of a sudden, this thing that I would have never, ever done willingly, I am now much more willing to do, because you've pointed out the safety tension. So that works both ways. You can either show them that their building is on fire, or you can show them that the thing you're jumping into is so much more safer. And I find that those things tend to be very instrumental in helping people get excited about things that they didn't even know they were getting excited about.
That makes a lot of sense. That's kind of the approach that I take with like kids, because they're very, very curious to begin with, and so it's easy to kind of coax that curiosity and make them interested in things that they didn't think they were interested in.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, thank you both.
Thank you.
This was great. Helpful. Thank you so much, Emily. Have an awesome rest of your day, and I hope this was useful to you, and I hope you call back in sometime.
Yes.
Thanks.
Take care. Bye-bye. And that was our last call of the day, y'all. That was it. That was the show. Fucking, I think it was a good one. I think we did. I think it was
that was awesome, show, man. Yeah.
We had great calls, covered a lot of stuff. Couple of quick things before we head out. Number one, I'm going to put a song in the chat that's been stuck in my head all day. It's Colors by the Black Pumas. Durante is the one that I was listening to when I got on that you commented on. At face value, it's just a song about colors that the dude likes. But like, I feel like if you read into it a little bit, it's about shaking off negativity and coming back from a hardship and finding beauty in your life and surrounding yourself with good things. I think it's lovely. So tune into that if you want that. It's a good song. Also, really quickly, I want to say thank you to our mods in chat, to our call screeners. I believe we had Stephanie Helms today, to Morgan, our producer, and all of our other producer, Arden, and also to my incredible co-host, Darante Lamar. I fucking love working with you, dude. As well as all of our people in chat, even the ones that sucked, all of our callers, even the ones that sucked, and also Fire Halo, who does our timestamps whenever they get around to it. I appreciate the hell out of them too. They're cool. And with that, Darante, do you have anything to send us off with?
No, man. Just everybody stay progressive, keep rising, and keep doing what you do. You know what I'm saying?
Keep rising. I love that. Have an awesome rest of your day, everybody. Never stop learning. Bye-bye.